I've refreshed. I think I'm good.
Three days down of virtual racing and one to go. The final day at the virtual Tour of America's Dairyland as we look forward to getting back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in real life. Today, we head to the historic Downer Avenue for the legendary Downer Avenue Criterium in the shadow of Cafe Hollander. This is a spot that cyclists from all over the country and all over the world will be looking forward to getting back to this summer. And we got a preview of it today on RGT, part of the Echelon Racing League. Well, another fast criterium today as we get ready to welcome our virtual cyclists into our virtual world on RGT. Back again with Frankie Andreu and Todd Bastide. Guys, 3 tough days of criterium racing so far today, the final day. But Todd, I want to start with you. This is always a special course at the Tour of America's Dairyland.
Show up first thing in the morning, setup's still going on. There's an extra special energy when you're on Downer Avenue, and I'm feeling a little bit as I'm sitting here getting ready to call the RGT version of it. That's fantastic.
Frankie, before we talk more about today, let's go back to yesterday where we were in Shorewood for the Shorewood Criterium. This is another classic course at the Tour of America's Dairyland. And some really exciting racing. Above and Beyond Cancer had another great day yesterday in the pro men's race.
Yeah, the great thing to watch is that, four-corner crit is going to be fast. They had those long straightaways. And the overall average watts per kilogram was extremely high. I mean, it was a very fast-paced race. We saw Warner going off in a breakaway trying to be able to string things out. But what I enjoyed watching about it is that the group stayed relatively large. There was a lot of guys being able to stay in the group. And when they brought back Warner, we were set up for a massive field sprint. And that was the interesting thing. It's like, who was going to be the freshest to have the sprint at the end?
Warner came back at 9 laps to go, and then watch this, finds his way back to the front after a small group of 3 gets away. That's Warner right on the left side of the road, passing Alec Jones, and then just beats him to the line for a stage win for Above and Beyond Cancer. So Hayden Warner got his first of the Echelon Racing League. He was pumped after we watched his teammate Matt Usborne get a stage win earlier in the week. So Warner adds to the Above and Beyond Cancer presented by Bike World team standings as well. Now, you saw Frankie talking about the watts per kilogram, 4.36 watts per kilogram for Hayden Warner on the day. That was a big one, Frankie.
Yeah, that's a big number for a lot of these riders. We've seen some of the other road races, even other criteriums with more of the corners, that watts per kilogram is not as high. So really it shows how intense this race was.
And not much going to change in the overall because the riders a little further down on the GC have really been hunting the stage win. So riders like Ben Thomas and Matt Usborne have been struggling to get major points up at the front. Thomas comes into the week with 230 points leading the overall competition. Matt Usborne with 170. Charlie Velez in third overall. Another name to watch out for. I think you're going to see a lot from him today for Hugh Dog Racing at 162, tied with Bruce Bird. This might be the real battle because these guys are both super aggressive on the front. They're not content sitting back and waiting for a sprint. So watch for Velez and Bird. They're definitely going to be looking for some overall points. And then Zach Nair in fifth, the leading rider for Project Echelon at 150 points, but only 12 points away from that Velez and Bird battle. So everybody contributing to their team efforts as well as we track the overall here with Team Tour 2000 presented by Callis, and then Restart Racing sitting in second. Frankie, these teams have been pretty impressive. We talked about consistency a lot this week, and I think you're going to see it again. Team Tour 2000 has been all over the front, but I think Above and Beyond Cancer has been most impressive this week.
This week, I would agree with you. Above and Beyond Cancer has been very aggressive, been attacking off the front, setting it up for the lead outs. The week before, I would say First Internet Bank did a fantastic job of launching different riders. And so that's been a different dynamic. You think of virtual racing being more individual, just being able to sit into the draft and set up for the sprint. But honestly, a lot of team tactics are being played out. And we've seen that with Above and Beyond Cancer. And of course, Team Torque 2000 trying to protect Ben Thomas's overall lead.
Yesterday's winner, Hayden Warner, looking calm, cool, and collected, comfortable for the final day of racing here at the Tour of America's Dairyland. All right, Todd, let's move into this legendary Downer Avenue course. It all starts and finishes on Downer Avenue. This is maybe one of the more unique courses that we'll see in the country. I guess we're officially calling it a four-corner criterion, but it's like 3.3. I'm not sure how the math works out on the last turn of Downer Avenue.
Well, yeah, there is a small chunk on Bradford, and to get onto Bradford, you're doing a 90-degree, but then it's a soft right-hander on the Downer Avenue. You can see that down at the bottom of our course profile there. But the business end is the start and finish, right up and down North Downer Avenue. The Downer Avenue Business Association, huge over the history of the event, and the history is indeed rich. At 0.9 miles, perfect for that crit distance. Turn number 2, a little sharper than 90 degrees, so that's one where you've got to pick your line. Here we are ripping across the line, setting up that all-important turn number 1. You can see all the businesses hanging out, pumping up the energy. There's a 90-degree here. You're going on to Park Place, and Park Place crosses Hackett right there. We'll talk about that as the day goes on. You're diving a little bit of downhill towards the lake. You want to make sure you hit your brakes, otherwise you're going to be swimming, and there's no swimming in this event. Swinging on the Lake Drive, that's where you got to pull it around, find that line, because that's sharper than 90 degrees. Look at that pavement. It's fantastic. The parties along Lake Drive also fantastic. A nice long stretch. Nice thing about this for us is that we can look back through the course and we can actually see, using Bellevue right there, we can see the course on the backside. Then we're going to come around once again, that 90-degree turn onto Bradford. It's a quickie, though. You're not going to spend much time there. No need to have your mail forwarded, because then it's a softer right onto Downer Avenue.
Nice fast sprint to the line then. Plenty of width on the road before they finally hit. I love this finish line. You see the parking garage up to the right. That's always lined with fans, and you can see how popular the finish line is here. All right, we are 1 minute away from start. Let's go to our official welcome from a local celebrity.
Hello, I'm Alderman Nick Kovac. I represent the 3rd District of the City of Milwaukee, and one of the great streets in the City of Milwaukee and in the 3rd District is historic Downer Avenue. This is a commercial corridor that has stood for over 100 years, and it's surrounded by great residential neighborhoods and by beautiful parks, and it's just a few blocks from the lake to the east and just a few more blocks to the Milwaukee River to the west. A big part of the history of Downer Avenue, as long as I've been alive, and I grew up inside the racetrack, has been the Downer Classic bike race. I remember as a kid coming and watching all the cyclists whiz by. New memories are being made by new children today. It's an event that families from throughout the East Side and now throughout the region come to enjoy. So we're thrilled that Tour of America's Dairyland continues the tradition of Downer Avenue bicycling, and we'll see you all here very soon.
You see the riders getting ready to conquer the historic Downer Avenue course. We're going to talk a lot about this one today as we get ready to go racing with our pro men here on the final day of the virtual Tour of America's Dairyland presented by Quick Trip. We're underway in racing with the pro men. Todd, every year, this is...
Did you see Chris Navin's hat? He's wearing a St. Patrick's hat. I'm not sure that's going to stay on his head very long, but obviously the starts are very critical. And Todd, you talked about the weird-looking triangle. I describe it as a 3-year-old drawing a triangle, and that's what the Downer course is. and it's kind of funny also that, you know, when you speak about Downer and the race course, it becomes very often plural. Like when you talk about Kroger, when you talk about Meyer, when you talk about Ford, it becomes Kroger's. I'm going to Kroger's, I'm going to Myers, work at Ford's, and it's Downer's Avenue. Always put the S's on the end of these things.
Yeah, well, you can't do that, though, Frankie, because for years, Downers Grove was the home of the national championship, starting out 2 days of racing, including inline skating, and then cycling took over, and another iconic course. But we call that Downers, and we call this Downer. So you have to put a quarter into the plural jar every time you call this course downers. That's the rule.
I'm going to be emptying out my pockets pretty quickly there, so I'm gonna take note of that though. But absolutely, I remember Downers Grove. That was a great iconic criterium course also. But Downer Avenue.
There you go.
I've raced this a few times, and it's a very fast course, and always a big fight for position. And right now, it's going to be the same thing. These riders here are going to have to get used to that sharper than 90-degree corner, which is really going to slow them down, have to accelerate out of. But also, it's a pretty quick course, and so they're going to have those long straightaways. Perfect opportunity to be able to sit in, rest up, be able to kind of follow the wheels. The key is just not getting gapped off the back, and that's why we see all the surging. Because if you're in the back 20 guys, or if you're in the back 10 guys, and you come around a turn, that is very difficult to be able to stay in contact, and that's why everybody wants to be in the first 10.
Want to bring in our in real life race director, Bill Koch, joining us virtually today for our Tour of America's Dairyland here. Bill, this is obviously a crown jewel here at the Tour of America's Dairyland, but every course is great. This is always a nice one to sort of cap off a weekend or a week of racing. So I know this is always an exciting one for you, but a lot of history on this course as well. I mean, this one is interwoven in the history of bicycling in Milwaukee.
1977 or 78, I think, we pegged for the first Downer Avenue race. It's been going on. It was part of the Super Week course, granddaddy of them all, and it still is for us. I mean, the crowds, police estimates, 15 to 20,000 people on every corner. The Benz Super Preme corner is crazy. The start-finish area is crazy. There's just a lot going on all day long. We get there about 7 o'clock in the morning, and then the crowds just build from there.
My favorite part, best lunch of the tour, because we usually get fed by Cafe Hollander just off the back of the stage there. I know I always can look forward to an Eggs Benedict at about 10:30 in the morning when we get a chance to go over and put an order in. Cafe Hollander is sort of the hub of the party scene at Downer Avenue.
Yeah, and they're also the title sponsor, so they put a lot of time, effort, and money into supporting this race. They'll be back again this year, hopefully, and hopefully we'll be racing this year live. But yeah, it's a big central gathering spot for a lot of people.
They have an incredible list of beers. There's sort of a Belgian bike theme. All the restaurants in the Lowlands group have sort of a cool vibe to them around Milwaukee.
Yeah, you've got Pizza Man across the street. They've got a rooftop over there also that's right directly across the street from the parking deck that you saw earlier. And they normally have people up there as well. And there's a couple of other restaurants down to the north towards Turn 1 that it's just a rockin' scene all day.
And then, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Super Preme and the associated Super Preme party when we talk about Downer Avenue at the Tour of America's Dairyland. How do you explain to an outsider, to maybe someone coming in from out of town that's never been to Tour of America's Dairyland before, certainly never been to Downer Avenue, what is the Benz Super Preme?
Well, there'll be an interview later today, but Vince Sanoski and Benz puts on this thing where you pay $25, and for that $25, you get a T-shirt, a Benz T-shirt. You get brats, all the brats are Italian sausage actually that you can eat, and all the beer you can drink all day long. So it's a crowd Preme. Generally, I'd say we're in the area of $3,000 to $6,000 each for the pro women and pro men. They've got a big stand there with a giant bell on top, and it's just, again, it's a nutso place to be, that's for sure.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. I know you're going to be hanging out with us for the rest of the day, but we'll get back to some racing here. We got our Nature's Touch chocolate milk ready to go. I know you had the Glazers from Quick Trip yesterday, so the essentials are covered for the Tour of America's Dairyland. We got our chocolate milk here as well. We couldn't get Glazers. I think FedEx lost our shipment, so those might show up in a couple days to Frankie and Todd's door. But, Bill, appreciate everything you guys do at the Tour of America's Dairyland. And looking forward to it. We're hoping to get back to racing in real life this year. Sounds like you guys are pretty optimistic about how things are looking up in Milwaukee.
Looking better every day. Every day, the numbers look better. We're cautiously optimistic, and then we do have a targeted date where we'll make a decision. But I think that we're going in the right direction.
We're getting our shots. We're wearing our masks, and hopefully We'll see you this summer. Thanks, Bill. All right, guys. Looks like field's still together here. Pretty calm out there. Not a lot of high-power rides. This is John Cooper up at the front. Kevin Bouchard-Hall leading here as well. I think these guys are tired. For the riders, Frankie, that did what is now going to be their 4th day of racing, you really feel this. It's only an hour, maybe over an hour, maybe a little under an hour, but the intense effort of racing on RGT after 4 days, that's going to put some sting in your legs today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the fatigue is definitely going to set in, and for a lot of these riders, what they're going to find is that their legs, with the power that they have to put out at 4 watts per kilogram or 5 watts per kilogram, when they're going hard, the muscles are going to give out first before their heart rate starts to go up, and that's a true indication of a sign of overtraining or fatigue, is that they can't get their heart rate up to what they're used to, and the leg muscles give out before they get a chance to get their heart rate up, and so that's something that for sure a lot of these riders are experiencing, because the last 3 days have been very, very intense from the beginning to the end. And especially if you look at the average watts that they're putting out, it's a hard day for them. So, and it's the longest races we had, the longest race of the series. And so many of them aren't used to 4 days of virtual racing.
Yeah, Todd, if you're not training for that, if you're not tuning the body for 4 intense 1-hour efforts, which not a lot of riders are, let's be honest. I think most people are probably training for in real life targets that they have. 4 days of RGT racing is going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenarios that are playing out. In real life, we see riders come in and they peak for this series. This is their A race group, if you will. And so they're training. They're looking for that peak fitness coming into mid-June, coming into Tour of America's Dairyland. Others are using it as a ramp into another block of racing and really get some hard miles, some fast miles into their legs. But, we all know the last 12 months have been kind of pivot town. So a lot of people training for their A and B events had to toss all that out the window. And so instead we have this block of hard racing. Some riders really optimizing the indoor training scenario. Others kind of using it to prepare for real life. Everything's a little different, and that's what makes it interesting. And when we put them all on the same course and duke it out.
This guy, a king of pivoting, Kevin Bouchard-Hall, has made a nice move into virtual racing this year. He's been doing a lot on Zwift and here on RGT in the Echelon Racing League, riding with Restart Racing here. And Frankie looks like he's given himself a nice little gap off the front here. But this is the classic dilemma. What do you do when you're stuck out in front by yourself?
And look at the effort he's putting in. You can see him all over the bike right now, and we have a lot of racing still to go. He's already gotten a second at the Giro de Grafton. He won the Indy Crit, so he's got speed and he has a good timing of the sprint, but very different tactics here, and perhaps this is something that Restart Racing is trying to kind of shuffle the game a little bit.
All right, so just picking up our leaders on the front here. We're going to get back to live action here in just a second as these guys going through a dark spot in our satellite coverage from out on course. Nice freeze frame here for Kevin Bouchard-Hall, though. I'm glad, Frankie, that we could capture him in this perfect moment.
He's got the wind going through his hair. You can see the fans, right? If you're on a stationary trainer and you have the wind blowing off the back of your head, that means you got, some strong cooling fans that are taking place out there. Part of the key to the pain cave is keeping it cool to be able to keep that core temperature down.
We'll get back to these guys here in a second. We should see them here very soon. Let's see if we can take a break, get things dialed in, and we'll get back to it here at the Downer Classic.
Milk, yeah. Guzzle milk, drink it all. Make a milk waterfall. Cookie milk, stack it tall. Milk with no rhythm at all. Make you run fast milk. Stay awake in class milk. Pour it by the glass milk. Is that a mustache milk? Boom, 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 base milk. Smile on your face milk. Go for the goal before you know you going all the way milk. Milky high, milky hay. I hope you have a milky day. Live your best life milk. You out this world, Milky Way. Put you on the spot milk. Question, got milk? Show us what you got. Hashtag got milk.
Ready to step into summer? Like really soak it all in. Set your sights on a breathtaking view. Explore a fresh coast right outside your door. Be awed by the awe-inspiring. Or savor a meal in the very place it was grown. Well, isn't it time you experienced the wonders of Wisconsin?
How are you feeling today? This question has taken on a whole new meaning lately. Now, more than ever, it's important to reach out to your family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers and ask about their health. Studies have shown that 70% of people have delayed getting health care or know someone who has. Someone you care about might be doing the same thing. Your simple, thoughtful question could start a conversation to help them get the care they need. At Ascension, Wisconsin, appointments are available now. We have strict safety precautions in place for your safety in our care. ERs at our hospitals are open 24/7, and ask about virtual visits. As always, we are here for you when you need us. So, how are you feeling today? Make sure you get the care you need at getascensionwisconsincare.com.
The people of Milwaukee are something. Making something new, something special, making change. Yes, this is Milwaukee, where alleyways turn to art galleries and MVPs are
Ascension, Wisconsin, appointments are available now. We have strict safety precautions in place for your safety in our care. ERs at our hospitals are open 24/7, and ask about virtual visits. As always, we are here for you when you need us. So, how are you feeling today? Make sure you get the care you need at getascensionwisconsincare.com.
Farming is more than just a job because it demands so much of you. Every day I'm with the people that I care about the most. We accomplish or we fail together.
Support Wisconsin dairy farmers. Buy Wisconsin cheese and dairy.
All right, welcome back. Picking up our action in the Echelon Racing League Pro Men's Race here on the final day of Tour of America's Dairyland. Kevin Bouchard Hall attacking last time. We saw these guys off the front for Restart Racing going solo and looking like he is continuing this move at 175 meters off the front with Chris Ray, Oliver Hutchings, Charlie Revel back here trying to chase. They got a concerted effort, but obviously nobody going across the gap to try to join our race leader, Kevin Bouchard Hall here. So these guys have made a decision that they're happy to let Kevin Bouchard Hall go. Doesn't look like they are super worried about him. And still early on here, we're just under 18 minutes in with 35 kilometers to go. So no surprise to see them letting him dangle. And 175 meters, not a huge gap here on our GT. Field should be able to make that up at will if they need.
Yeah, you'd be able to call the field at this point non-believers. Now, if there was
sorry about that. Still trying to get this worked out with Kevin Bouchard-Hall off the front. Luckily, Bouchard-Hall making things easy for us because he's keeping the race situation pretty steady as he goes solo off the front and no chasers out of the field, although looks like he may start to feel a little bit of fatigue here as he starts to show the efforts of the last roughly 10 minutes he's been off the front here, but really just been tapping out a steady tempo here.
I would say, if anything, he's going to set a new FTP record, personal best for himself, if he can, get up to like 20 minutes of this effort. But this is a maximum effort right now. He's doing almost 5 watts per kilogram. You can just see he's all over the bike. I mean, this is something that you would do in a time trial for, a final 2K flyer. Head down, going flat out. He's trying to extend that gap. It's unbelievable how hard he's going. So let's pay attention here. It's 145 meters is what it says right now, and that's kind of what it's been for the couple laps. But there's a lot of riders in that main group that are sitting in. They're following the draft. They're staying rested, just like in real life. The fresh legs are in the main peloton.
It's sort of impressive how steady this gap has been. I mean, we stepped away for like 6-7 minutes, and they still had the 150 to 170 meter gap. I'm not sure if that's credit to Bouchard-Hall or credit to the riders back in the field doing the chasing, but this has been a steady gap for the last 10 minutes or so.
So we mentioned Jaden Yeager not in this race. Where is he? Well, he's sitting on the sideline throwing shade at the race promoters and the announcers. He's asked when the promoter/announcer race is going to be. And in response to that, Jaden, we would say, yeah, we'll get right on that.
I'm not racing against Frankie Andrei, no way. That's why I signed Frankie to my team. I'm putting together a super team for 2021. Frankie's on it. Maybe I don't know what Jaden's plans are, but maybe I can buy Jaden away from his team for 2021. Add him to Frankie and I's squad. I think we also signed Dr. Afsari yesterday from Ascension Medical. So squad's coming together, Frankie.
We would definitely take a ringer. I think Yeager would be a good one to be able to bring onto the team. And so for Jaden's question, we're still gathering and putting together a squad. It takes time. It takes time.
Yeah,
see highlighted right there, Blodgett. Sorry. Our winner from Giro de Grafton, Blodgett, sitting in there comfortable. So this is our main group sitting relatively comfortable. And I was looking back at the results. Matt Usborne is the only one that has made the podium on two different times. Everybody else has been kind of a one-off. And so got to be able to keep an eye out on Matt Usborne. And we've seen how aggressive Matt Usborne likes to ride. And so I'm sure a little bit later on in this race, it's not going to be any different. But I love the St. Patrick's Day hat on Christopher Navin down at the bottom of the screen.
Well, look at Bouchard-Hall. He is spending big-time cash on this breakaway effort. Usborne, on the other hand, nice and calm. Hayden sitting there, nice and calm as well. One has to wonder, I mean, this is what we try and do from the sideline. We read the riders as they go by. How much are they spending? One has to wonder if Bouchard-Hall is going to be able to hold on to this effort that much longer. And the answer is right there on the metrics as we're seeing that gap coming right back down under 50 meters with the cavalry coming up onto his back porch right now.
Yeah, this is the announcer's jinx, right? As soon as you start looking at it, Frankie, they start coming back.
I was going to say, Brad, if you take a DraftKings bet here, is he going to be able to stay in the group or is he going to get spit out the back?
I'm taking.
Oh, there you go.
I think he stays in the group. I don't think he gets dropped, and I cannot wait until the day that we can prop bet on virtual racing. That'll be the full 360 of this shift in the recent paradigm. But looks like this one's coming back. The question now, I think, is does anyone counterattack here? I would not be surprised to see. Yep, here we go. Exactly what I was thinking. Charlie Velez, Above and Beyond Cancer. These types of riders are going to try and use the opportunity and go now, Frankie.
Yeah, a big swarm to the front. So a lot of riders in the red, and so the danger's in the back. I mean, Brad, you've always talked about it, watching the back of the group of who's going to get gapped off. We can see a couple of riders in a little bit of trouble just coming under the start-finish line right now. So they have to tag on coming out of that turn number one, and of course, the sooner the better. But on the front, You got Swart, Ray, Hutchings, a lot of these riders, you're right, counterattacking or continuing to push the pace. And it's kind of interesting, just like in real life, the faster they go, it starts getting strung out, starts getting into one line, and gaps start to open up. Right now, as Usborne just talked about how aggressive he likes to ride, and he's doing it once again.
Yeah, surprise, surprise, as Above and Beyond Cancer sends Matt Usborne off the front. And this is perfect for Usborne. He loves to go deep. He loves these long, steady attacks. Look how long he's been in the red zone here, Todd. This is a serious effort. This is not a test.
Yeah, and he is savvy enough to know that the game's going to slow him down on turn number 2, that 110-degree turn number 2 on our Downer Avenue course. So he laid off there, but as soon as the game handed him back the throttle, he got on it and pushed, and the field, not wanting to let Usborne go anywhere, responds quickly, with Miller now countering off the front.
Usborne is a guy that I really want to see racing some of these courses in real life, because he's been so exciting to watch in the virtual platforms. If that transfers over to the way that he races in real life, and I suspect it does, having a guy like Matt Usborne at Downer Avenue would be really, really exciting. It's always action-packed, but you can always use some guys that aren't afraid to attack the field, and then, of course, going for the Super Preme as well. I want to go back to Downer Avenue, because one of my favorite parts about racing here in the Echelon Racing League is that we're racing on real-life courses, on courses and races that are built on real people and real neighborhoods. So let's go check in on Downer Avenue.
Racers from around the United States and the globe come to race here at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. This race dates back to the mid-70s, and our Todd Bastide recently spoke with two very famous sisters from the Milwaukee area, Sam and Skylar Schneider.
Well, if you know anything about criterium racing in the Midwest, iconic, historic, dynamic, exciting. Now, I could be talking about Downer Avenue, or I could be talking about the Schneider sisters. In this case, except for maybe the historic part, that doesn't really land real well, does it?
For her, maybe.
We're talking about both. Skylar, Sam, joining us right here, Toad on the Road. How you ladies doing? Fantastic to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Missing Toad right now.
Yeah.
Let's try something here, because we always, when we're racing Toad, we always get a ton of energy when we introduce you two as being from West Allis. We call you hometown. So you two have both raced Downer many times. Let's talk really quickly. So what sticks out to you most prominently as the feature of racing Downer Avenue?
Other than just the atmosphere with Cafe Hollander, with the outdoor seating and the spectators lining the entire course to especially turn 1 where the Benz Super Preme is, the noise level compares to, racing in Europe where the fans are just so excited and animated. And for me, that's what I remember most about Downer's app.
Oh, that's fantastic. You just threw a huge compliment to that whole Downer vibe when they're equated with Europe. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what do you recall from that race?
The vibe, the atmosphere. It's really an unbelievable feeling being so close to home, having all of your
to especially turn 1 where the Benz Super Preme is, the noise level compares to racing in Europe where the fans are just so excited and animated. And for me, that's what I remember most about Downer's app.
Oh, that's fantastic. You just threw a huge compliment to that whole Downer vibe when they're equated with Europe. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what do you recall from that race?
The vibe, the atmosphere. It's really an unbelievable feeling being so close to home, having all of your family in the midst of a true crit. It's really exciting to have them be able to experience what we experience at some level in other cities. Although Toad and Downer Avenue put on the top, like a pretty top level crit for them to experience, 15 minutes from home.
Well, maybe the highest compliment that you can be paid in the cycling world is being compared to European cycling, Todd, or being compared to the Vibe. That's sort of the gold standard in bike racing. But Downer Avenue is a great example of the American style of bike racing that we love so much.
Yeah, but it does have that European flavor, doesn't it? I mean, Café Hollander with the Belgian core and their expertise in European beers, Belgian beers, and Hackett Avenue turns into a showplace of great European cuisine every year on race day. So it's not like there isn't an awareness of the European flavor, but, as you say, the crowd picks up on it and the energy just goes through the top, which makes it so special.
And every year, the crowd's lining the course and then the party as well. And we talked about the parking garage as well, some really unique viewpoints. The thing I love about Downer is you can watch from so many different places on the course, Frankie, and get a different experience everywhere you go. The vibe at the top of the parking deck is different than the vibe at the Ben Superpreme party. It's different than the vibe hanging out at Café Hollander. Is different than the front yard parties on the backside of the course.
Yeah, I can remember hanging out by the start-finish line where Café Hollander is, and then you walk on that street. And Todd, you mentioned the name of the street, which I don't remember, that goes right behind it, Hackett Street. And going back there to get the beer and the bratwurst and eating like mad, and being able to see them by the time they come around turn number one, you're seeing them on the backstretch, kind of walking down, kind of near where the Superpreme would be. And I think that's one thing that Sam Schneider and Skylar Schneider probably remember the most also about Downer is the money. I mean, because the Superpreme really is, it's a moment, a huge moment of the race. And it's a ton of cash. I mean, it goes a long, long ways for a lot of these riders. And so it's kind of a race within a race, and it's a ton of fun watching how that grows, how that builds, and how these riders start to set up for it.
Yeah, we actually had a chance to head down to Downer Avenue just a couple weeks ago to check in with Vince at Ben Cycle and learn a little more about the Superpreme.
So we are here on Lincoln Avenue on the south side of Milwaukee with Vince Hanoski, the third generation owner of Ben's Cycle and Fitness. And we want to talk to you about the Ben's Superpreme and party. Tell us how the Ben's Superpreme started and when did it start?
So this happened the prior race people that owned it before you. And a buddy and I were sitting on the corner of Park and Hackett, and we decided that next person that came by would win a case of beer. So that's how it started, and then it evolved. And it was kind of an underground thing. Nobody, we didn't want it, and all of a sudden, I think actually you came up to me, Tom, gave me a hug, and I go, oh boy, now we got fun. And it just grew and grew and grew, and it is what it is today.
So for the people that don't know, it's right after the first corner, about 100 meters.
Right.
So it is a sprint for corner one. I've had racers tell me they come to the Tour of America's Dairyland just for the Ben's Superpreme. And I've had fans tell me they come to the Tour of America's Dairyland just to go to the party. I mean, what does it mean? What does it mean to the people, the racers and the people that are there?
It's just something that just evolved. Each year just kept on getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it just becomes, okay, here it is. We're going to do it again this year, and it just happens.
What's your favorite part?
Once the money is all gone and I can relax and things are under control, but up to that point it's a little stressful,
So you raise the money, you raise the pot, it's split equally between the pro men and the pro women.
Yep.
And it's
try to get it up to, we always try to shoot that $5,000 women, $5,000 men. That's always our goal. Weather's always dependent, and there's, we just try to get up there, and it's been really, really good. That's about our record right now is 5-5.
Yeah, I'd like to say I don't know of a bigger preem a bigger one-lap prize
The
in the
biggest one
country?
we had was probably when we were just giving it to the men, and that was close to $10,000 for one rider.
That's amazing.
It was one of the Kenda guys. I forgot his name, but yeah, he was.
Yeah, riders will come in just for that, preem. So, how many bratwursts do you serve?
1,500 Clemens bratwurst.
How many pounds of hot jardinera?
I have no idea. There's a list that we get that we end up going over to the wholesale place, and we need this many of this, and this. If you keep good records, it works out really well.
Yeah, it's a smooth machine. You have a cycling club that pours the beer, right?
Yep, they do shifts of whatever they do in hours, so that takes the stress because we used to have to be responsible for making sure there's people to do that, and we also have 2 cooks, and then we also have the 2 or 3 college kids that collect the money. So when you can get that going, it just makes it a lot less stressful.
So a couple more questions. How do you spell the word preem?
Prime. Did I get it right?
I think that's right.
That's
yeah.
right.
It's you can spell it however you want. It's your event. It's your preem.
No, we spelled it correctly.
And then, what's the pot? What's the preem going to be this year? What's your prediction?
It's all weather related. I told you that. You're not sticking me with that.
Well, I'll see you at the party. I never miss it. It's the best party in town. Thanks.
One of the classic elements of the Downer Avenue bike race, and one of the things that makes this race one of the favorites on the Criterium calendar. It's sort of a new tradition, Todd, at Downer Avenue. This race goes back, we were talking with Bill earlier, 20 plus years, but you heard Vince talk about sort of a newer tradition at Downer Avenue.
Yeah, and I love the organic genesis of that. Vince Onosky just sitting on the corner of Hackett and Park, and that's literally, hey, next guy that goes by, case of beer. Bam! And from that, the idea spawned and really grew. But it did so in a very rich environment, and that environment is what's been created over the years. And the name Otto Wentz has been attached to this race for good reason, because this guy has been iconic. There he is right there. That's the one generation of great Criterium racing talking to the next generation. That's the back of Brad's head in case you need help with the Identify the Criterium Announcer contest. Otto drove this event 21 days of continuous racing all over southern Wisconsin, and teams would come in. The Euros would come streaming in. The Australians, the Southern Hemisphere squads, Colombians would come in because Otto ran an incredible ship. He loved the racing. He loved seeing racers. He loved seeing competition. He put together a fantastic series. And so that's the environment that Downer Avenue has grown out of. We didn't just create this out of nothing. The Ben Super Preem is taking advantage of that momentum for sure.
And Frankie, I know you know the racing history of this one as well. So many of the great American cyclists have come through and raced Downer Avenue, either as part of Otto's Super Week, part of the Tour of America's Dairyland. Really, the road to becoming an American iconic bike racer goes through Downer Avenue.
No, exactly. And, and Otto wins. You got to give him credit for starting really the first to have multi-day Criterium series, with Super Week and called it. People would come from all over, including international. And so it was a very high-level, talented field every year to be able to compete at it. And sometimes it was a mix, it wasn't just Criteriums. It was a mixture of Criterium races. Of Downer, I can remember on Downer, and part of kind of what led up towards the Super Preem is back in the day during Super Week, there would be spectators on the backside of the course handing up dollar bills to whatever riders would go by, trying to grab them out of their fist to be able to put some cash into their pocket. And for a lot of these riders, they needed it. That was their gas money to help them get home. And so, that was kind of the impetus towards starting or leading towards the Super Preem that came around a little bit later. But it's all part of the fun, making it something different, encouraging the riders to have a good time, and that's part of Downer Avenue and Tour of America's Dairyland.
There really is a classic summer activity. You know, Milwaukee in the summer is really unbeatable, Todd. I know you're a Chicago guy, but I know you like to come north every summer and enjoy the cool breeze off the lake as we race up on Downer Avenue.
I'm going to be completely honest with you, Brad. Yesterday, I was out in the yard, and a large migratory group of sandhill cranes that go over our house each spring and fall went by, heading north to Wisconsin, and I was jealous.
Going to the summer cabin, right?
They're going up to what I consider just a beautiful state, great places to ride, great events all summer long, all winter long as well, but focusing on the energy to bring back Tour of America's Dairyland. We took a year off. We did not forget, and so a lot of work went on all year long. Bill Koch driving the effort, staying in touch with each one of the sponsors, each one of the venues, and he has done a ton of work to prep us for the 2021 Tour of America's Dairyland.
My favorite part about Wisconsin, there are quick trips everywhere. You're never more than like 10 minutes away from a glazer and a nice cup of coffee. That's one of my favorite takeaways from Quick Trip. Although now I'm looking forward to trying the fried chicken, Todd. I've been hyped up on this Quick Trip fried chicken, so that's my first stop when we get to Wisconsin this summer.
That is not going to be a move you're going to regret. Yeah. Bill Koch said you got to try the fried chicken. I took him up on it. I was not disappointed.
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm definitely in on that. Do either of you guys remember, I don't know how long ago it was, a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, with at Downer, I believe it was, where they were handing up pineapples on the backstretch.
Yeah, one of the clubs put together the pineapple preem, and that thing blew up. It became extremely popular, which is, that's kind of the atmosphere. Crowd involvement, crowd connection with the racing, and the pineapple preem developed a life of its own.
Yeah, it did develop a life of its own. It was kind of funny because you'd be seeing all of a sudden, and it was given out. It wasn't, handed to them during the race, so the riders weren't racing with holding a pineapple. But all of a sudden, the race would finish, and I saw these people coming around holding a pineapple. I'm like, where in the world did you guys get that? And so we figured out that there was a pineapple preem going on the backstretch, which was just kind of free for all. It's just some people set it up, and it's like, all right, we're gonna ring our own little bell and say, all right, whoever crosses the line, you're gonna get a pineapple. And so. Again, just part of the fun of the event. Now, too bad that these guys can't appreciate some of that fun because there's no hand-ups going on right here as Bowen is in the red at 5 watts per kilogram. But not surprisingly, the group is still all together despite a fantastic move by Brashard Hall a little bit earlier, really pushing the pace to try to see if they could kick some guys out the back of this group. But generally, most of these guys that are all kind of gunning for the win have managed to be able to stay together with 16 kilometers to go.
I've been hoping that we can get preems into RGT. I just think that would be so cool if we were able to ring up some cash or prizes. I don't know how we would best get them a pineapple, though, but we could. It's not as easy as sending a PayPal, but I guess we could mail them a pineapple or maybe a case of beer, maybe some Quick Trip fried chicken. Not sure how well that would travel either.
Yeah, you go, but I like the creativity of it. Maybe we can give them 3 shares of GameStop stock. One of the things that happens around these courses as well is that, we don't always know that there's a preem going on. So there'll be a party on the backside. There'll be 60, 70 people hanging out on a lawn, and they will start passing their own hat, and we'll hear, hey, there's a preem that's up to $1,000 on the backside of the course. It's yet another example of the fans really getting into it, enjoying the racing, and honestly, nothing's more fun than watching a good preem contested by some top-level athletes.
There's plenty of them on Downer Avenue, plenty of sprints. They always do a good job of getting together a nice preem list for us to give away. That preem bell definitely gets a workout And then, of course, the Super Preme as well, which usually comes somewhere in the last, let's say, 10 laps. The point is that we never know which lap it's going to come on, so that nobody can try and plan it too early. But it's always a chaotic final 10 laps because we got some preems to give away. They're giving some preems away on the backside of the course. And then, oh, yeah, you got the guys that are racing for the win. So, Frankie, the last 10 laps are I hope you like sprinting if you're at the front or in the race at that point, because there is a lot of it at the end of Downer Avenue.
Yeah, and you include the lead outs that are taking place and everybody trying to set it up. And the thing is, they know the Super Preme is coming at some point, and so very aggressive racing, and it's like a jetpack was lit up under each of the riders, and so it's exciting. It's a lot of fun, and right now we've seen Above and Beyond Cancer attacking. I've seen Restart Racing attacking a lot also. Different teams kind of putting their plan or their execution into place here with 14K to go. And, they're just kind of, 45 kilometers an hour. It comes down to the same thing. The 3-year-old that drew the triangle that kind of messed it up a little bit. It's just a fast course. The straightaways are so long, and you're going 45K an hour, 48 kilometers an hour. Very hard to give away. And I think they saw how hard Rochard Hall was going. They saw the red. They saw him doing 5.6, 5.7. And realistically, he got nowhere. And so maybe that was a signal for a lot of these guys thinking like, hey, this race is not going to blow open. We're going to have to save we're going to have to keep our powder dry for the sprint that's going to come up a little bit later on.
Yeah, let that be an example to the rest of you, the field said when they chased down Kevin Bouchard Hall. So things have been pretty calm since then. We did see a little attack from Matt Usborne earlier, but not nearly as long-lived as Bouchard Hall off the front. I want to bring back Bill Koch. We were talking about Quick Trip earlier. This is a relatively new partnership at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Bill, I know you guys are really excited about this, but nobody is more excited than Todd and I because now we can stop for breakfast and fried chicken every morning on the way to the venue.
Yes, fried chicken. That's the big thing. I mean, they have fried chicken now in over 700 stores across the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa. They are known as Quick Star, and I believe they're in Illinois, Northern Illinois now. So, Todd, they're coming for you. Great, amazing partner. I mean, they just the service in their stores is unbelievable. It's just a great brand to be associated with. The Nature's Touch. Let me grab my milk here again. You can't beat this stuff. The riders love it. The fans love it. They've got free ATM, no fees, ATM. Their famous tagline is "See you next time," which I have blazing on the back of my car. It's just they really have been fun to work with.
This is Bill. I notice you're not able to show us any glazers. Is that because they were consumed, or are you holding out on us? You do have some. Okay. Yeah. Oh wow.
But there's still 4 in the box though, Todd.
Well, I am astounded by your restraint then, my friend. I'm astounded.
Yeah,
I'm impressed with your control.
Thanks. No, it's they just have gone above and beyond to be supportive of us. They actually accuse us of being over communicators. Imagine that. You guys know me pretty well, but we go sort of above and beyond in their expectations, and they hold us up as sort of a glimmering star in their event sponsorship world. So it's really worked well for both of us, obviously.
Looking forward to getting back there and getting back into some Quick Trips this summer. Thank you, Bill. And big thank you to Quick Trip for making this possible, making the Tour of America's Dairyland possible every year. Todd, I know one thing I was super impressed with when we go through, I love a good gas station, right? As someone that travels a lot, you do a lot of road trips, I think I've seen just about all of them. I've seen every model out there. I love the coffee bank at Quick Trip. That's maybe my favorite part. There's 10, maybe 15 selections, so never under-caffeinated.
It's not a coffee station. It's a coffee aisle. And that that excites me right there. Yeah. I once rode my bike 100 miles to get to a Quick Trip. They are north of the Cheddar Curtain still. They are coming this way. But so I rode up to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, just to be able to go to a Quick Trip. That's how committed I am.
You really love Glazers and coffee. I'm impressed. Then you got to ride back. That's the problem. I guess you can fuel up and tack another 150 miles on the way back. All right, these two guys.
That light bulb moment.
Yeah, you think about it. Still off the front, Revel and Bauer. Bouchard Hall back in the group, but at the front. As we're getting down to it here, Frankie. 11 kilometers to go, so no surprise to see Revel and Bauer. These are another two guys who have been off the front a lot this year in the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, they have been off the front a lot and been attacking. And I was going to say for Brad and Todd, you guys must be pretty excited because when Bill gets you the Quick Trip Gold card for your to be able to get your fried chicken and donuts when you're traveling around. So that should be coming in the mail, I'm sure, relatively soon. But Charlie Revel, a good rider. We talked about him before. You know, he's a big guy, 6'1", 185 pounds, 36 years old, strong. And then Timmy Bauer on, you know, the opposite end is a young rider racing for Above and Beyond Cancer. And as they continue to kind of keep attacking and putting riders in the front group, we've seen Bauer repeatedly kind of put into that position to either patrol things or to be able to get himself off the road. And Bauer's 29 years old out of Placerville, California, and actually comes from racing motor. And it's very common. A lot of motocross riders also do cycling to be able to maintain their fitness, but also a lot of motocross riders do cycling because they got injured doing motocross.
Emil Peter Sosnowski joining this group of three up on the front as Hugh Dog Racing adds one. So that'll make three, and then it looks like the rest of the field staying together behind them. Let's see if they can get clear here. Revel's going to redouble his efforts, try to keep the gap going. This is what you have to do, Frankie. You have to keep that effort up, especially on RGT, especially in virtual racing. I think the timetable for an attack is even longer. It's sort of extended on these virtual platforms. So where in real life you'd be doing like maybe a 2-minute effort to try to get away, to make it work on RGT, you've got to be looking at like a 10-plus minute effort.
And partly it's because of the speed. The speed's a little bit more exaggerated here on the RGT platform. And so, excuse me, you're absolutely right. With 7 laps to go, it's not just one big sprint and you go hard for a minute and you establish a gap. Here you do have to go harder for a longer period of time. And Revel and Sosnowski are doing a good job. They were both just sitting at 5-6 watts per kilogram. But again, we've seen that main group, when they decide, if they get a couple of guys that really go hard and the other riders get into the draft, that slingshot effect is very effective in kind of surging everybody up to the leaders. Nice shot here with the gaming room, as I call it.
I think Charlie Revel really wants to get a win here at the Tour of America's Dairyland. If you notice, he's got his sponsors down in the bottom right corner. One of those sponsors is White Lake Cheese. So Charlie Revel, obviously a big fan of cheese, and so I'm sure he'd love to get the Wisconsin cheese prize pack that each of our winners are going to be getting here at the Tour of America's Dairyland. So I'm sure Charlie has a little extra motivation here today as a fellow cheese lover. Todd?
Yeah, our fans checking in. So Jaden Yeager, who has been racing in this series, he's in a recovery day. He's actually sitting at the Cafe Hollander enjoying Bloody Marys on a Sunday morning watching the broadcast. So that's where the diesel engine is. Mike Lister is signing up. He wants to be part of the announcer sponsor team. He says, I'm an amateur rider and an amateur announcer. Do you have room for me? And based on what we've seen from Mike Lister, I'm thinking, yeah.
You're our virtual ringer, Mike. You're in. But with Lister and Yeager, once we get Frankie dialed in on the RGT physics, get a little training in him, we'll be set. And then, then there's me, the director sportif / soigneur for the squad. That's my contribution.
I was about to say, I've been training. Brad, you're the one who needs to start training.
We're a multifaceted racing team. You know, we like to dip our toes in a lot of different types of racing. So I am not on the virtual squad, mostly because I don't want to embarrass you guys.
Well, we appreciate that, Brad. We really do. Timmy Bauer yesterday went backwards. Today, definitely making up for it. We're now looking at about 50 meters. They had 70 there at the peak, so it's still floating around, but Bauer, Revel, Sosnowski not waiting around. They're putting the effort in, but let's see if they can make it stick. Coming up on 7.5K remaining.
Yeah, Bauer had
Look at
a
the guys
technical
bridging.
yesterday. Lost power yesterday. Lost connection with his power meter, and so that's what sent him off the back. So it's always a bummer, Frankie, when you have a bad race the day before. This is Bauer right here. You got a little fire in your belly after something like that.
Yeah, you want to be able to show everybody that it wasn't your legs that spit you out the back, that it was a technical glitch. But I was about to say, if these three guys made it, it would be the first time in the 21 races that we've had that a group has actually been able to hold off to be able to go for the win, because we've never had that before. And so, we've had guys taking flyers at the end and being able to hold off, but like having a small group, in other words, like a breakaway, actually make it to the finish. We haven't had that, but Timmy Bauer doing a good job. Now he's got to, be able to recover and get back into the group. And we've seen before a rider who was in a breakaway recover and sprint the way Hayden Warner did when he won Shorewood yesterday. So it's possible Timmy Bauer's not out of it yet.
Even managed to give us a wave as he saw that he was on camera. So nice to see Timmy still having some fun down in the pain cave. He's got pretty good setup. I like his LED lights and all of his race numbers off to the side there. Little attack from
pushing
Millar
a monster
off the front.
cadence as well.
Yeah, he's spinning. We see that with a lot of different riders, but some riders like to push a really, really high cadence, and then it seems to go the other way on the other side, Todd. Some riders like a really, really low cadence, the big power riders, as Charlie Bietka rolls off the front here. See if we can find him on camera. We can figure out what his cadence is.
Yeah, looking at 8, 9, 10 watts per kilogram at the peak, and still in the red, north of that 7 watts per kilogram mark. If you're not familiar with that metric, the rider is weighed, and then the kilograms versus the amount of watts put out, it gives us a metric with which we can compare a 60 kilogram rider to an 80 kilogram rider, basically 100 pounds to 180 pound rider, because those would be so vastly different in terms of their power output. But by comparing watts per kilogram, it gives us a unified metric with which to look at the output that particular rider is creating.
Field is chilling back in the group, not real worried about Bietka at 25 meters up the road. You can see the current watts per kilogram of the rider that we're following, which here is Kevin Bouchard-Hall. You see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that shows the distance, the speed, things like that. That is the current information for the rider that's highlighted on the left side of the screen. So right now you see right in the middle, Kevin Bouchard-Hall on the left side of the screen sort of has a darker bar along his name. Now we're following Beek, so the color bar changes and the data will change as well up in the upper left and upper right-hand corner. So it's an easy way to tell who we're following, who we're looking at on camera, which right now is our solo rider off the front, Bietka, although this one is going to come back together. And Frankie, it's going to be, I think, the same thing. We've sort of developed a formula for criterium racing here in the last 5 laps of racing. At like 3 to go, you'll start to see some attacks that go off the front, but none of them have stuck yet. And all the criterium racing we've done in the Echelon Racing League, I don't think we've seen one successful attack inside 5 laps to go. There's just too many riders keeping the pace too high to get away this late.
Yeah, and too many riders sitting in enjoying that draft, but it doesn't stop a lot of these guys from attacking. And one thing to keep in mind, 5 watts per kilogram, I mean, that is a huge effort. That's putting out a big effort, and that's exactly what Charlie Beek was just doing. But all these guys together right now, there's 4 laps to go, so they're thinking about how to set up for the sprint. And again, when we've interviewed the winners, they've all talked about how much their team has helped them. And so I'm sure a lot of that communication and a lot of that help is taking place right now to be able to set up their riders. I mean, we want to see Ben Thomas, the overall series leader. He has to get up there in that sprint because Matt Usborne has been scoring points left and right, gradually moving up that leaderboard to be able to get closer to Ben Thomas. And a lot of the other guys obviously want to be able to do well also, because in the men's race overall, 3rd place to 7th place, there was only 36 points difference coming into the start of Tour of America's Dairyland.
Well, Usborne's definitely going to be there at the finish because he's been targeting these, although it seems like he's been sort of trying to support the Above and Beyond Cancer teammates as well. Ben Thomas is like the silent assassin, like Pogacar the other day. He'll just sneak up out of nowhere and take the win at the end, but he's really not an early race aggressor most of the time. We usually see him sort of sitting back, saving his energy. And Todd, you talked about this, the efficiency of the overall watts per kilo at the end of this one. It's not always the rider with the highest power numbers that wins the race. It's the rider that used that power the best.
It's taking the time to understand the dynamics built within RGT and knowing what's going to happen in the corners and not having to respond so dramatically. And you see a lot of moves, and typically you'd say, okay, here comes an attack. But in reality, what's happening is these riders are savvy enough to position themselves going into the corners so that they preserve some of that energy and do not have to go into the red to stay with the group coming out. The draft is so important. I actually think Chris Navin should have an aerodynamic penalty for riding in that hat, because I think his avatar needs to have some kind of large disc attached to his head that creates a little bit of aerodynamic drag, because he's done the entire race with his St. Patrick's Day hat on.
I can't believe he's kept it on the entire time. That has got to be hot. Earlier we had Mike Swart wearing some sort of headband thing. His issue was that the sweat ended up corroding the headband and dyed his hair. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen to Chris Navin. Chris, be careful, man. Make sure you don't end up with green hair, because you might spend a couple days washing that out after that one. Just fair warning, but I do like the hat.
Yeah, I was going to say, they dyed the Chicago River green, so now they're going to dye Chris Navin's hair green. So, yeah, it's going to fall right into that category. So, setting up here now with a great sprint about to be able to play out here. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys, and look for those numbers to turn into the red once we get down to the last couple laps.
John Cooper.
Mike Lister's fan club on YouTube cheering him on. I like the possibility of him adding the Phil Liggett accent to our announce team. So we'll explore that a little later on. Right now, though, how real is this? I just looked down and realized that just like real Downer Avenue, within the last 5 laps, my leg is pumping up and down. I'm getting sucked into the racing here, guys.
It's going to get exciting.
$2K to go, a lot of positioning. Bouchard Hall, here's Lister one more time. 2 kilometers to go, not out of the question for somebody to get lured into trying to go off the front. It just seems like it too far, too soon. Bauer responding, going up. Again, this is likely to be positioning as we're coming down inside 2 kilometers, getting ready to set up the final lap here at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic.
Guys, I just noticed something. Frankie, this is a major change. What you're looking at is the camera of Ben Thomas, who was just on Zoom showing us that he has pulled a pedal off the bike. He was trying to get a pedal back on the crankset. So Ben Thomas is out of this one with a mechanical, a technical mechanical, which we very rarely see in the real world racing. So let's send him off for one lap to go. Bill Koch's got the bell ready. Bill, send him off for the final lap of racing.
1 lap to go! 1 lap to go! 1 lap to go!
Did they cross the
every
banner?
indication is Bauer wants to be involved with this. He has been hanging out at the front. Lister hanging out at the front. Blackburn hanging out at the front. Overall lead with a mechanical on the final day. Not what you want to see.
Yeah, obviously no free laps. We're coming down to the crunch. Look at this. 3 riders getting away. 700 meters to go. Lister trying to be able to win it all. Bauer's trying to be able to get on the wheel to be able to get into the draft. Waiting for the surge from the main group sitting back there. And we know Usborne is going to surge. We know Bouchard Hall is going to surge. Right now, 500 meters to go. The 3 riders really hanging on for dear life, trying to get the meters to go past and underneath them. This is incredible. We saw it again yesterday also with one rider trying to hang on, but being passed with 150 meters to go.
All right, down to it here. This group of 3 looks like they have a real shot to try to make it work today. Just as I say it, they get swarmed by the field. Here comes Kevin Bouchard Hall. Big surprise here. Not Bouchard Hall, former winner here at the Echelon Racing League. Dowd up the left side now. Segerbrooks trying to get there. It looks like one of the Seersucker guys is there. And a big photo finish on the line.
Well, Miller was second. Oh, Blodgett. No
Blodgett.
way. Once again.
Wow.
Blodgett, his second win of the weekend here. Frankie, when you're hot, you're hot. Restart Racing gets another one with Dave Blodgett this time.
And he made it sound like he was lucky the first time that he won, like he didn't really know what he was doing. Obviously, he knows exactly what he's doing. When Giro de Grafton, it was Blodgett from Restart Racing and Brochard Hall from Restart Racing. But Blodgett, once again, taking victory over Miller and Dowd. Incredible. He's got the outdoor look going here for the indoor riding.
Well, I think you
I'm going to
remember
go shades over green hat any day. Shades over the St. Patty's Day hat, I think.
Remember yesterday we saw a video of Eric Hill's kids riding on the trainer inside with the sunglasses. I think he might be trying to channel that energy again today for Restart Racing.
Nice.
Blodgett, impressive, 37 years old, out of Madison, Wisconsin. You know, when COVID hit in 2020, he was training to do racing, and then all the racing got canceled. So he started just going out riding, like 200-mile rides, like doing 5 hours, 6 hours. Completely burned himself out, sat on the couch for a while, put on like 20 pounds, and then got introduced to virtual racing in November of 2020. And here he is now taking 2 stage wins out of Tour of America's Dairyland.
All right, let's go into our Zoom room and grab a word with our race winner.
Turn this fan off.
There we go. Dave, congratulations. You said yesterday, or you said on your first win, that there might be a little bit of luck involved. Can we now say that these are skilled wins in the Echelon Racing League?
All right. It's timing, man. It's all timing. Sweet.
Hey, tell me about the choice for shades today. What inspired the look today?
I'm in a garage. Sun's coming in the window. It's nice out, and you know what? I like wearing the shades. No, I scratched my eye, and I'm a little eye sensitive.
Makes it a little more realistic, right? You're a little closer to feeling like you're at a real life bike race. And I love the Wisconsin flag behind you. A little bit of home state pride for our Wisconsin racers today.
I'm running straight to the gas station for a chocolate milk.
Yeah, we're going to get you some. Well, I'm going to make sure that's a part of your training as you get ready for, I assume, the real life Tour of America's Dairyland. You got to be pretty psyched to get back to racing this summer.
No, after this, I am. I'm ready. We'll do it.
Well, we're almost there, so just hang in there. A little bit more trainer riding. Hey, wrapping up the ERL here, what's the next sort of transition period look like for you? You think you're going to keep some virtual racing on the schedule?
Yeah, I think we'll probably start the Tuesday races back up here in ZRL, and then we'll be keeping an eye on what's going on RGT. The RGT DB ranking is pretty it's new and it's pretty exciting. But no, I'm going to be getting on the gravel bike soon and putting some long miles on. So that's what's really next.
Virtual season wrapping up, and gravel season and road season coming up fast. Dave, congratulations, and thanks for racing in the RL. It's been a blast having Restart Racing. You guys really have made it fun.
Thank you. Thanks to all the Echelon guys for putting together. Can't wait for the next one. Cheers.
Todd, pretty cool having a Wisconsin rider getting a win out here at the Echelon Racing League. I mean, it's about as exciting as it gets to have even the Wisconsin flag displayed in his post-race interview.
Yeah, well, we talked about it a little earlier when we talked to Sam and Skylar Schneider. Anytime, even if the folks on the boards don't know who the riders are, you just say hometown, bam, suddenly there's a whole new level of energy. So having Dave Blodgett coming in from Madison, fantastic little hometown flavor for the Tour of America's Dairyland. Gotta love it.
Frankie, taking a look at the results here. Oliver Dowd and Jonathan Crane rounding out the top 3 for Restart Racing as they sweep the podium here. What a day for Restart.
Yeah, fantastic day. But also look at, new names, right? It's nice seeing Ned Bowen get in there, Jude Sands, some new names to be able to get up in that sprint. And then, the overall watts per kilogram. I mean, Jude Sands just kind of, he sat in and took it as easy as possible. Blodgett also kind of holding himself back and worked out with a perfectly timed sprint. But overall, 4 days of racing, I think it turned out fantastic, and it amps everybody up to be able to get ready for the in real life Toad once it comes around.
All right, well, we are also getting amped up for our para races coming up next as we get down to our last 2 races of the Echelon Racing League. Had some really exciting para racing yesterday. We're going to be joined by Ian Lawless here very shortly, so we'll take a short break here from the Echelon Racing League, and we'll come back with more live racing at the Tour of America's Dairyland Downer Classic.
The world is changing.
I'm looking to do things better.
To improve.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it's right.
I embrace change.
I seek adventure and discovery.
I explore and explore.
To know the unknown.
Even in the toughest moments, we ride together.
Even in the moments when we're at our limits.
We support each other. It's time to move up a level.
And push that little bit harder.
The changes we make now will make the future better for all. The efforts we put in today will pay dividends tomorrow.
We all have the power to up the game.
To build something better.
It's not time to play.
It's time to get real.
It's time to be a game changer.
As an athlete, getting marginally better is one thing. Getting exponentially better puts you in a whole new ballgame. Biomoto uses a proprietary digital process to capture movement at 200 frames per second and 70 sensors per foot to measure ground-based forces, resulting in advanced motion analysis that's up to 10 times more accurate than orthotics. It's the data generated by this process that allows Biomoto to construct custom insoles that make athletes faster, stronger, and more stable, and results in an unprecedented 95% success rate.
The 2020 Virtual Tour of America's Dairyland is brought to you by Quick Trip, going the extra mile for you. By Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. By Hyper Ice, move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including the Echelon Racing League. Another great view into downtown Milwaukee as, again, we get hyped up for getting back to racing this summer on the classic Downer Avenue course that we're celebrating today. We have really had a cool opportunity to meet some of the people that make Downer Avenue great and sort of learn a little more about the neighborhood and the course that we're racing on, because it is so iconic. Really, any big-time bike racer that's been racing in the United States will know exactly what you're talking about when you talk about Downer Avenue, the Triangle. We sent Todd out to talk a little bit more about the course, so let's learn now about the legendary Hackett Avenue.
Idyllic. Sleepy. Yeah. That's how you'd currently describe Hackett Ave. Look at that. A nice little suburban street. But on race day, whole different story, Sparky. That's where Ben Superpreme has historically set up. There's food, there's beer gardens, there's things for the kiddies to do, there's all kinds of activity. Sleepy Little Hackett turns into Party Central here at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. We're looking forward to it again this summer. We're on course.
My name is Dr. Alan Lim. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I've spent most of my career working with professional cyclists. For years, I've been getting riders to ride on static trainers that don't move. But now, with the Infinity technology by Ceres on the MP1 platform, you have fore-aft movement as well as side-to-side movement that ultimately greatly enhances comfort. Every single contact point can move in a more natural way, and over the long haul, what that means is you don't get beat up by your static trainer. With just that little bit of motion, you start to replicate what you feel in the outdoors, and that changes the entire experience. I think that one of the big reasons for that is that we're naturally tuned to want to move. Our vestibular system, when it's activated, ends up, creating, I think, a sense of harmony or joy that just isn't the same when you're not able to move. It's like the difference between a rocking chair versus a static chair. And a lot of it, I think, is about expectation, because when you get it on a bicycle, you expect it to move. And so when you get on the MP1 platform with the Infinity technology, you get that same level of movement. 6 degrees side to side, 9.5 inches fore and aft. And what that does is it creates an experience that is just so much more enjoyable, so much more fun than being on a static trainer. When you look at the design of the MP1 platform, it's not just designed for the H3 trainer by Ceres. It's also designed to be compatible with almost every new smart trainer currently on the market. So if you don't own the H3, but you have your own trainer at home, odds are this will be compatible with the MP1. Another unique feature of the Infinity technology on the Ceres MP1 platform is that it's best in class. You have 6 degrees of side-to-side motion and 9.5 inches of fore-aft motion. That's movement that specifically replicates what you feel outdoors, and there's no other competitor on the market that can simulate that type of movement. It's certainly not the kind of movement that you can get by just putting tennis balls under your trainer. Cycling isn't just about your legs and your lungs. It's also about being able to handle the bicycle, and that takes a lot of control in both your core as well as all of these small stabilizer muscles. On an indoor trainer that is static, you're just not getting any of that specificity. But with the Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform, you are able to use and have to use all of those stabilizers to control the bicycle. The net effect is that not only do you get a workout for your legs and your lungs, but you also get a workout for your core. The Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform creates the best-in-class movement for any trainer system. You've got 6 degrees of side-to-side movement, 9.5 inches of fore-aft movement, and the net result is way more comfort, way more fun, the ability to use your core or stabilize your muscles, and you've got a platform that is compatible with most trainers.
Welcome back. Just about 12 minutes away from our para race getting underway, being joined now by Ian Lawless after an exciting day of racing yesterday. Ian, first of all, welcome back to the Echelon Racing League. Super exciting to be able to add virtual para racing, as this has always been an important part of the Tour of America's Dairyland in real life, and so it's really nice to add this to our virtual race offerings yesterday and into today.
Thanks, Brad. Super excited to be here. Really excited to see how the racing unfolds today.
So let's go back and talk a little bit about yesterday, because I think that's going to be a good look into how the racing is going to go today. We had some really good battles out there running two different races for our two different sort of groups of categories of racers, the C classification and the H classification riders. Let's start with our H classification battle, where we saw Ken Bestine and Alicia Dana had a great battle between those two. But take a look at 10th place right here. Monteguido, the Spanish rider, had a great surge about halfway through, was able to solo to the line to take the win. So he was our overall H classification winner. And then see Alicia Dana held on for second place, just ahead of Andre. And then Ken Bestine held on for fourth place on the day. So great ride by Alicia Dana, our women's overall winner, and obviously winner in the H3 category as well. Over in the C category, this was a Mark Anthony Sanchez off the front, but this was the real battle that we were watching. Ian, these four put on a great show as Sanchez went to the line. We had this sort of quad battle between Porter, Kimball, and McDonald all back there riding together to the line.
Yeah, and then no surprise, really, Jason Kimball, who's a bit of a sprint specialist, came across for second place with a really solid sprint to the line. So fun to watch for sure.
Well, you see some of the riders have put their classification in the name. We're doing our best to try to track the different classifications for the riders. But, Ian, I want to talk a little more about the different classifications. We're running two separate races in the para races, an H classification group and then a C classification group. Just take us through the classifications that are racing out there today, if you would.
Yeah, the H class, H is really stands for hand cycle. In Europe, they say hand bike, and those are our athletes with lower mobility impairments who ride a hand cycle, a bike you power with your upper body. And then the C classes are our two-wheel bikes, athletes who ride those with or without an adaptation, and those athletes can have any number of different impairments, ranging from an amputation to another disability, such as cerebral palsy, for example, that gives them weakness or imbalance in some part of their body. So those classes are like you said, they're separate races today, with the C1 through 5 class and then the H1 through 5 class racing separately.
Let's take a look at some of the riders joining us here on, again, our second day of para racing. It's been awesome to see the turnout across the different categories and across the different teams. I know, Ian, we have teams from all over the country represented on the start list today.
Yeah, it's great to see good representation from really all of the big paracycling teams. You have Paralyzed Veterans of America who have had a long time, have had a racing team. We have some of our national team athletes. You see Jason Kimball there racing for U.S. Paralympic Cycling. Challenged Athletes Foundation has a team entered as well. So great to see just representation from really all facets of our sport.
And this is obviously a very special celebration for Project Echelon, working with veterans, and obviously a lot of veterans on the squad as well, as we take a look at what would be the hand cycling start list here. So any big names jump out at you on this list, Ian?
For sure. You mentioned Ken Bestine earlier. He's a veteran racer, been racing a long time. Alicia Dana, who was right up there at the front yesterday, former world champion from the women's side, who's been racing a very long time. Tokyo 2020 hopeful. Jeff Hopkins for Paralyzed Veterans Racing. We didn't see him a lot yesterday, so we'll see if he comes out to play today.
Well, those riders will be, again, in their classification, and we'll do our best to track the different classifications across the two separate races. We'll be checking in with both of them throughout the day today, throughout the race as they conquer. Should be right around 30, maybe 40 minutes for most riders or the fast riders out there today up at the front. Let's take a look at the course one more time, as this is what the riders are riding on RGT. Again, one of the big features of this racing platform that we're on today, RGT, is that they can load real-life courses into the platform. And so, Ian, this is a huge advantage for para riders. We talked about the additional burdens of traveling with para equipment. To be able to train on a course that you're going to be racing on later in the year, maybe a nationals course or a qualifiers course, it's a great opportunity to get some training in so you kind of have a better idea of what that course is later on in the year.
Yeah, and the technology these days is amazing. And as you mentioned, our athletes are able to really train and actually do a competition, virtual competition on exactly the same course that they may be racing on later in the summer or later in the year. So a great opportunity for them just to kind of see how things go, and then obviously make some adjustments, some improvements to their preparation and their training for a particular course.
Nice flat course for the riders today. There's hardly any elevation gain to speak of, so they won't see much of in the way of elevation on the RGT platform, which I think a lot of riders will be happy about. Criterium racing is one of the more, I think, exciting disciplines of racing, Ian, to watch, especially in the hand cycling and paracycling, because the drafting is so important, especially in the criterium discipline. We talked about it yesterday, but the skill involved to race paracrits is pretty amazing.
It is, and particularly in the hand cycling group, we almost view it a little bit differently than traditional bike racing, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. There's bump drafting going on, and it's almost a little bit more like NASCAR sometimes when you watch these riders race a criterium course.
We talked about the bump drafting and just how close they get. Of course, the amazing sound as the carbon bikes roll through. You hear the carbon wheels. And we talked about the equipment as well yesterday, Ian, but just take us through again, if you would. Talk about some of the unique machines that we're going to see these riders racing on today.
Yeah, in our hand cycle category, we've seen a lot of development over the last 5 years, particularly hand bikes. And, these riders are all about aerodynamics, and they're all about trying to get that free speed and that power to weight ratio and all of the same things you see on the able-bodied side, but a little different in that they're really their aerodynamic profile is much better than that of a two-wheeled cyclist typically, and so they're going really these days at speeds they shouldn't be able to go, and producing power, frankly, that we didn't think they could produce 10 years ago. So the equipment is a big part of that. And as we talked a little bit about yesterday, it's all about the light components, the carbon fiber components, and that's all part of hand cycling. And then, of course, on the two-wheel side in our C categories later, we'll see athletes just trying to do the same thing. Some of those athletes have an adaptation, so they might have a prosthesis that they use, or an adaptation on the handlebar, for example, if they're only able to hold on for one hand. So, and I think I said this yesterday, our paracyclists are really the MacGyvers of the bike racing world, because they have to be.
Yeah, the machines are a huge part of making it possible, and one of the more interesting aspects, I think, of para racing and hand cycling. I want to bring in Bill Koch, race director at Tour of America's Dairyland, who has been an advocate champion of having hand cycling and paracycling at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Bill, including national championships. I mean, why is this so important to you guys at the Tour of America's Dairyland? Because this is always a priority for the team when it comes to planning.
It's diversity and inclusion. We've got the able-bodied two bikes. We now have the hand cyclist. John Haupt is the guy that brought the idea to us, but it really made sense for us to just another addition to the series. It's all about cycling, cycling for life, and showing that anybody can do this sport. I mean, it's just incredible to watch these folks. I think the thing that we were really lucky with was when we got people like Will Grew, Jody Shiflett, Carlos Moleda, and Ken Bestine to sit with us to plan this event. So we said, we don't know what we're doing. Who should we ask? And the VA Spinal Cord Injury Unit in Milwaukee directed us to a lot of those guys. John knew a few of them. We put that together, and there's been no turning back. The fans love it. The sponsors love it. The hand cyclists themselves are amazing folks. They're just so friendly, and when there's a podium, they all stand there together to watch who won. The other ones, they take off and they do their thing, but the hand cyclists, they're all there engaged. It's really an incredible scene.
And Ian, obviously the opportunity to race and tune the engine is hugely important for athletes, whether they're targeting a national championship, a world championship, or even the Paralympics. Having the opportunity to race and train at that level is huge.
Absolutely, and we really value our partnerships with people like Bill and events who really get what it means to include athletes with disabilities and paracycling as part of their event. And that integration is a big part of, I think, what what our partnership at U.S. Paralympic Cycling with USA Cycling means as well. When you can go to an event and you can see athletes with and without disabilities competing on the same course and really being showcased in the same way. And that's a big part of why I'm involved in this, is to really show that people with disabilities can still be elite athletes, and the opportunity to race, particularly domestically, is huge for them.
And Bill, this is another big part of it. I mean, this is why we put them in those prime time slots, because we want to show off these incredible athletes and show people in the cities that we visit at the Tour of America's Dairyland that everyone can ride a bike.
Yep, absolutely. That was a great point about it. I don't know if I'm still being recorded or not, but if I am, placing them between the pro women and the pro men every day this year, they'll be our 4 best days in terms of spectators. It's just worked out really well.
And these athletes certainly deserve it. Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you for all that you do for our para and hand cycling athletes. I know everyone on the ride today really appreciates having the races at the Tour of America's Dairyland. So, Ian, looks like we are just about ready to get underway and racing. This is going to be, looks like, our H group. So the hand cyclists here, again, we're running 2 different races out there today. We'll check in with the hand cyclists in the H category and our para cyclists in the C category. So it looks like Nilsson already off to a pretty fast jump here. And then Ken Bestine, you see here yesterday, had a great ride yesterday. So it looks like Bestine and Funderburk going to lock in here together. The start, always super important in virtual racing. So I think that a lot of riders learned yesterday some of the intricacies of racing on the RGT platform. As realistic as the courses are, the way that you have to race the course is a little bit different. You have to play the game, I guess, if you will. So it's been interesting watching these riders adapt to racing on RGT, and I think it's going to get even more interesting out there today. But Ian, this is right in their wheelhouse. Adapt and overcome, right? This is nothing new to these riders.
Absolutely, and that's what they've been doing, for the last 12 months, is just being creative and figuring out a way to keep training and keep racing. And this is another great opportunity for them, particularly as we approach the spring and what we hope is the beginning of our road season, where we will be doing some actual racing outdoors as well. So this is a great tune-up for them on the road to getting back to real racing.
Want to bring back Frankie and Todd, because Todd, I know this is always a big highlight of racing for you, both watching your friends compete from the Chicago area up at the Tour of America's Dairyland, but it's really special to be able to call these races, isn't it?
Well, it really is, because it's bigger than just a bike race. There are stories. Anywhere you go with a athletic event, there are stories. There are people that are saying, okay, I'm going to get off the couch, I'm going to run a 5K. And they work towards that, and then they accomplish it, and they feel better about themselves. And when you get to a para-athlete event, the stories are incredibly powerful, incredibly inspirational. And for me, it's fantastic. So Frankie mentioned that he's actually spent some time coaching the Marines in connection with their preparation for Warrior Games. Our technical director, Mark Zalewski, actually the race director on a number of cycling events for Warrior Games. I've had the privilege to participate. And the stories in an event like that, the stories in our hand cycling and para-athlete racing here at Tour of America's Dairyland, all just fantastic. So good. Love watching it.
We'll see in Dixon in 3rd place in our H category here, with Moss and Nielsen up the road, although this is going to be a nice group back in 3, 4, and 5. Ian, we were talking yesterday about how these races are sort of shaking out the same way that they do in real life. Oftentimes in para and hand cycling, we see these small groups forming, and there's a lot of battles going out there on course. So a lot of times we're watching like 3 or 4 different battles in one race.
Absolutely, and it's interesting today here to see definitely a different group of athletes than we saw yesterday racing. Some names we don't necessarily recognize, but I see that you have in 2nd place currently riding is the rider S. Moss, and it's possible that that's Ryan Boyle, who often uses the name Sterling Moss in virtual racing. It may or may not be him, but that's part of the nuance here of virtual racing is sometimes we're not always sure who we're looking at with the different screen and avatar names.
Well, I guess I understand when you're world champion Ryan Boyle, you don't want the big target on your back, so he's got to go a little incognito maybe with Mr. Moss out there. So interesting strategy. We'll see if we can figure that out, get to the bottom of it. Here's yesterday's winner, Mark Anthony Sanchez, back on the front. And looks like McDonald going to be able to hang with them a little longer here today. They're going to add Porter here as well. So this looks like a good-looking group of three here as these three link up. We'll say Porter, McDonald, and Sanchez going to be our lead group up here at the front of our C classification races. This is Jason Kimball in fourth place, looking at the gaps, and looks like he's all alone. Kimball has 240 meters to the nearest rider behind him and 100 meters to that lead group of three up the road. Well, it looks like he's starting to close it down. Ian Kimball might be able to close this one. I wouldn't count him out. You said he was a sprinter usually, but this is just like a sprint, only it's with 10.5K to go.
Yeah, although Kimball is a member of our world champion team sprint team and also a kilo specialist, so he's not necessarily a fan of riding a longer than a couple of minutes, but he has been training a little differently over the last year, just like a lot of people have, and doing more road riding. So we'll see if he can bridge that gap. He was able to win the group sprint yesterday and finish second. So I think they definitely would prefer that he not catch back on to the lead group here.
I think I did see Sanchez and McDonald sort of picking up the pace when the number started to drop below 100 meters. They got him back out to 150 meters now. So, Ian, I think you're absolutely right. These three guys are putting in a concerted effort to keep yesterday's podium finisher Kimball out of the group.
Yeah,
and they obviously hit the gas right from the gun today for sure.
I'd like to throw a question out for Ian. And Ian, what is the Paralympic preparation looking like with still some uncertainty about Tokyo? What are the squads doing in preparation for the Paralympic Games this summer, Ian?
Well, I will say that we're pretty certain we're preparing for Tokyo and putting a squad together for that. Our selection process for our Team USA roster certainly did change, but we're preparing for a season where we will be competing in Huntsville, Alabama at a big national level event next month. A week or two after that, we're going to be going to Europe. We'll be in Belgium. That's our final qualification event for the Paralympic Games. And then we'll hold the Paralympic Trials race in Minneapolis in June, and that'll be a one-day time trial. That'll be the final step in the process for our team selection for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. And I didn't misspeak when I said that. It actually is still referred to as the 2020 Paralympic Games, 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games, even though it is now 2021. And then once we name our team, which will be on June 20th, we're still trying to figure out exactly where we're going to do our final team preparation camp, likely somewhere in the Southeast in late July. Just trying to still kind of figure out what the safest and the best opportunity for our athletes is there.
Ian, talk about that.
Highlighting, Ian.
I was going to ask you to talk about the selection for the team.
Yeah.
Our selection is a lengthy process, and it was turned a little bit upside down. The qualification period, which is really set out by the UCI, for the track actually ended back in January of 2020. So most of our athletes who have been trying to make the team on the track have already done everything they need to do in terms of the track performances, even though we won't select that team until June of 2021. And then our road athletes are able to qualify in a couple of different ways. As I mentioned, they'll go to Belgium for a World Cup in June, and that's their next opportunity to earn a slot on the team. And then the final opportunity is those Paralympic trials in June in Minneapolis. But what's interesting is we don't yet know how many spots we have for the games, and that won't be finalized until we're in Belgium. So it's a bit of a moving target. So the athletes may have already put in a performance or a race result that qualifies them for the team, but we won't actually know that until June because we won't be awarded our slots until then. So it's a complicated process. It's very lengthy, and some athletes have a really clear strategy, while others have a couple of different ways they might be able to make the team. And so we really won't know until June 19th how many athletes we're going to be taking to Tokyo and who actually makes the team. I can tell you that our goal, and this is probably the first time I've publicly said it, but I think it's fine. Our goal is to take 10 men and 7 women to Tokyo, and I think we're well on that road to being able to do that.
Well, a complicated process gets even more confusing in the era of COVID, but sounds like we are pretty close to getting back on track. Frankie, having that goal is huge for an athlete, a coach, a team to be able to circle that date on your calendar and really work towards that mentally is a pretty big deal. So I'm sure a lot of riders will be looking forward to that selection day to know if they can circle the Tokyo Paralympics on their calendar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stress, and with the riders trying to be able to figure out their training, obviously with 2020, you know, if you had good form and you thought you made the Olympic team and all of a sudden everything gets kind of shuffled and you're having to reassess the situation, reassess your fitness, reassess, balancing your family life with your work life, with your Olympic aspirations. And so that does play havoc on it. But, you know, they're a focused group of individuals. They're having to adapt to the changes with the calendar year in order to be able to try to qualify for the Olympics. But it's a lot of, you're trying to prepare yourself and do well, and you know that does not come until June, which seems like it's forever away. And then you got to obviously, you're going to peak for the June event, but then you're also trying to peak for so that can kind of complicate things. But very strong. Right now, we're watching some pretty good performances. Well, Tour of America's Dairyland in both the uprights and the hand cycles.
Ian, yesterday we talked about the sort of pros and cons of the COVID era. Obviously, more cons than pros, but you were saying that sort of the atmosphere of the para racing community has been is changing a little bit, getting a little closer here as the pandemic has sort of forced us all to reach out a little better to those in our community.
Yeah, we're connecting in different ways than we traditionally would, but as I mentioned, I feel like I talk to our athletes more in the last year than I typically do, and I feel like our athletes communicate with our coaching staff and with each other a lot more regularly. And the other thing I would just like to add, something Frankie just mentioned, is what we've seen, and this has been a positive for some athletes and negative for other athletes, is I think that the team that we take to Tokyo this year will not be the same team we would have taken a year ago. So, and that's really just dependent on each athlete's individual situation, whether they were going to have the Tokyo Paralympic Games be their last hurrah and they're not able to continue all the way through 2021, or they just were able to figure out something different in terms of training, or even in a couple of athletes' cases, they were injured at the end of 2019 or early in 2020, and they've now been able to fully recover from those injuries, so they're now sort of back in the mix. So very different dynamic in 2021 than what we had in 2020, and it'll be really interesting to see what our final Tokyo team roster looks like.
There was yesterday's winner that we're watching right there with Mark Anthony Sanchez, a strong rider. He rode away from everybody yesterday, and it looks like he's kind of doing a little bit of the same thing this time also. He's the rider from the Audi cycling team out of Oregon who's the blind tandem pilot. And right behind him, Charles McDonald kind of chasing him down out of Kentucky. He does, a lot of, he actually does everything. He does mountain biking, does road, he does cross. He lost his arm in an accident a while ago. Behind McDonald, looks like we have Porter, who's doing a good job. And so look at the watts per kilogram, though. I mean, 3.6, 4.3 coming from Porter. I mean, pretty much this is exactly what we saw in our pro men's field just a minute ago when they were riding around at 4 watts per kilogram. And then Kimball, we talked about him being the sprinter, the previous world champion in the team sprint. He's represented the United States at World Championships 7 different times. And he came out of, he decided to join the Marines coming right out of after 9/11.
Well, and it's really interesting to me. Two names here right at the top. You talk about McDonald and Porter. These are both new athletes as far as they're known to me. So super exciting just to see some new names in the mix here that obviously we want to see competing more and see them in action and hopefully participating in more paracycling races and hopefully eventually getting to the international level for U.S. Paralympic cycling. So great to see some of these newer names here right at the front with Mark Anthony Sanchez.
Ian, are there things or items that you need to pay more attention to for the hand cyclist compared to an upright? For example, I know dissipating heat. It's as a hand cyclist, when you're out on the road in real life and it's like 90 degrees out, it's much easier to overheat as a hand cyclist compared to an upright. Are there any other items with therapy or hydration or nutrition that you have to pay more attention to as a hand cyclist compared to an upright?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the thermoregulation, as you mentioned, is a big one. Depending on the athlete's level of injury, they will have the ability to sweat or not sweat, or sweat perhaps only minimally. So that's definitely an issue. So it's not only about the thermoregulation, it's also about managing it. And we work with our sports science team and our sport nutrition team actually to really work directly with our athletes throughout the year to test their sweat rate, for example. And we work very hard on our heating and cooling strategies, particularly as we get into Tokyo, right, where we know it's going to be hot, we know it's going to be humid. And we really utilize our resources at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center here in Colorado Springs to address some of those issues, do some testing, and work on strategies for athletes to prepare for these competitions where they may be racing in the heat. The other issues with some of our hand bikes is, for example, they have limited grip. So sometimes we have to figure out an adaptation or a way for them to be able to hold on to the handle and also to shift and to brake. And so back to that kind of MacGyver aspect of this sport, a lot of times just as you see in able-bodied racing, an athlete will come up with an idea on their own, and then ultimately the manufacturers will adopt something similar and mass produce it. So lots of different things out there, and no two athletes are really the same. So everyone has to be really creative, and it's really difficult sometimes for an athlete to find something on the market that works right out of the box. And so we see them getting creative and working with our coaching staff and our sports science team to figure out creative solutions. So it's an amazing thing to watch.
And Ian, there are components that would transfer and that you could pick up at a bike shop, but oftentimes these hand cycles are special. So not only do you have to travel with a hand cycle, is it the case that you might want to have some spare parts for some of the parts that might be more susceptible to failure?
Yeah, absolutely. Although our head national team mechanic, Steve Donovan, who actually is from Wisconsin, is there right now, is the master of the spare parts, and our spare parts bins have been growing over the last few years. So he has almost anything you can think of. But yeah, most of our athletes travel with specialty tools, some specialty items, things that might break or that you might not be able to find when you're in a foreign country, for example. So it's interesting what they travel with, and ultimately some of our athletes have figured that out in a pretty efficient way, so they're not carrying 30 extra pounds of stuff when we're getting on a plane.
Right, yet another instance of where the virtual racing is a little bit more convenient in that respect, not having to carry all that when you travel. Go ahead, Frankie.
No, I was going to ask about that equipment, because I was thinking about that right before your equipment question, is that are there Olympic hand cycle bikes that the team would get, or do they all use their individual bikes? And on top of that, if it is their individual bikes, are there specific wheels that they'll get from being on the Olympic team, which might be a better quality than what they're used to, or do they have to bring all their own stuff?
Yeah, and that's actually a great question. We're transitioning to being able to supply more equipment for our hand cyclists. On the two-wheel bicycle side, we have equipment that we provide. Right now, most of the riders are on their own hand cycles, but we do supply team wheels, and that includes everything from a disc to a deep section time trial wheel to the latest and greatest in technology. And just like all teams have had to deal with, we're transitioning right now to having an inventory of more national team wheels that are disc brake compatible, and trying to be able to accommodate all of those athletes. But that certainly is part of something you earn by being on the national team, is that you don't have to carry all of your equipment with you these days. Even as a hand cyclist, we bring probably about 40 pairs of wheels with us when we travel internationally, and that supports our athletes across all of the different classifications, not just the hand cycles, so that when they get on the start line, they're not at a disadvantage, and hopefully even at an advantage with their equipment.
Well, we are down to the final lap of racing here, looking at Mark Anthony Sanchez at the front of our C classification races, as Sanchez out on his final lap, pumping out the power here into the red zone. That is basically the highest you can get on the power scale here in RGT. So looking like Mark Anthony Sanchez going to be going 2 for 2 this weekend at the Echelon Racing League Tour of America's Dairyland Para races. Here is McDonald in second place, and you can see he's got a pretty nice gap back to third for Porter. So McDonald looking pretty comfortable here. Ian, these are some familiar names in para racing. It's nice to see big names at the front of these races.
Yeah, and Mark Anthony Sanchez is going to go for 2 for 2. But as I mentioned, great to see McDonald and Porter, as well as Kimball, coming back for more today. And not quite as close as it was yesterday, but just good to see everybody putting in solid effort. And like you said, some pretty big numbers here from Mark Anthony Sanchez, which is awesome to see.
And then Jason Campbell sitting in fourth place as we go back to the front. And this is going to be your winning ride as Mark Anthony Sanchez hits the finishing stretch in virtual Downer Avenue, as Sanchez adds another one, the winner in Shorewood and the winner at the Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. Congratulations, Mark Anthony Sanchez, overall winner of our C classification races. Looks like McDonald will be good for second. Porter, I think, should be safe in third. Kimball looks pretty comfortable in fourth. I'm looking at the gaps on the leaderboard on the left side. Allen looks good in fifth. And then a nice battle for Perunia into sixth. All right, now checking in with our hand cycle race, moving over to our other virtual course here with Nilsson, who has been off the front for a majority of this race. I want to say almost the entirety for Nilsson here, as looks like he is wrapping up the last about 700 meters. And then our mystery rider, Mr. or Mrs. Moss.
Yeah, hard to say if that's Ryan Boyle or not. Looks like our top American rider right now, Ken Bestine, riding in sixth, but a ways back from our leader, Nielsen.
I see Alicia Dana down in 11th, registering 0 power. She must have had a technical issue, maybe a dropout for Alicia today, so that's a bummer to see. It's never good to have an issue like that in a race, but seeing zeros on Dana's power meter tells me that this is almost definitely a technical for her. So hate to see that. Bummer for Alicia Dana. Remember, she was up there yesterday, had a really good ride into second overall, our women's overall winner. But struck by some bad luck today. So Nilsson hitting the line, in and done, as our hand cycling overall winner.
Nilsson winning the hand cycling category. We saw our winners in the C class, and we also had one rider in the T2 category representing trikes. 2 categories of para T1 and T2. And we actually had one in this race. Glad to see all 3 of the classifications represented.
Yeah, it's great to see just this opportunity for all of our paracycling athletes to come out and race. And, you know, I'm really happy just to see that they're getting the opportunity to race at a high level and put in the effort, because that's what we're going to need as we approach our 2021 season here, where we will be going to Tokyo for the 2021 Paralympic Games.
And something that's fun to watch, Ian.
All of us going at that time.
Frankie.
How long is a hand cycle Olympic race? Like, what's the distance?
It depends on their category. Typically, it's 15K. for most of the classes, and then our H4, H5 men's classes, which are our athletes with a lesser degree of impairment, usually will race between 25 and 30K for the hand cyclists. And then our two-wheel bikes, same thing. A lot of them are going to do 50K. The tandems and the C4 and C5 men will usually also do 25 to 30K in the TT. And then the road race distances range from 50 to 80K, just depending on the category.
We saw Mark Anthony
and we're going to be racing
at as a tandem pilot, and Ian, I numbers geeks actually love looking at tandem combos. You got Mark Anthony laying down some big watts. Ed Veal, a guy that we were talking about the last couple of days, also rides as a tandem pilot. And the watts numbers, when you take two strong riders, put them together on a tandem, and route all of that power through one power meter, it just gets into the silly, ridiculous range. A lot of fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch, and we've seen some really interesting things. For example, you see some pretzel chain rings when we watch riders at the track come out of the gate. But what's really interesting nowadays, and this was not the case even 10 years ago, where the visually impaired athlete was looking for that big, strong pilot who could really put the big numbers in. And in the past, it was the pilot who was putting in the big numbers. But now it's so competitive internationally that it's really both riders who really need to be putting in almost equal power. And what the end result of that is just some huge numbers, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Up north of 2,000 watts in sprint instances, which is just kind of hard to wrap your brain around.
Easily. And when you think about even on the track right now, I think the world record is 59.1 or something like that for the kilo, which is absolutely staggering.
Wow. Double the power, I guess. Pretty impressive numbers that we'll see out on the track. Final riders finishing up here. I think we just had Funderburk in. This is Andre that we're looking at here in 8th. Now, we have Bestine and Funderburk in earlier, which I think are going to be our first American finishers, as we're trying to welcome our top 10 in here. Now, still trying to figure out who this is because this rider registered. We asked the riders to register with their classification, their category in the name, so that we could see it on RGT. Not only for us, but for the other riders as well, so they could see who they were racing against, because normally, as Ian said, these would be broken out by category, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and then H1 through 5 as well. But everyone racing on the same course here, so we asked them to add the classification, and the H in H Andre is hand biker, so still trying to get a first name on Andre here, but glad that they come out and race, and impressive to see so many international riders here, Ian. This is a nice international field, obviously something that's usually not possible when we have to travel.
Yeah, it seems like maybe even the word got out a little bit since yesterday, as we have even more international riders today. So great to see. Some of these names are unfamiliar to me, but it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, it's about good competition and high-level racing, which is absolutely what we're seeing out here today.
All right, well, looks like our final riders rolling in as we're looking at Steets right now in the hand cycle race, about to wrap up the top 10. So let's take a quick break here from the Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. We'll have our results from our hand cycling and paracycling and pro women's racing coming up after this.
Milk, yeah. Guzzle milk, drink it all. Make a milk waterfall. Cookie milk, stack it tall. Milk with no rhythm at all. Make you run fast milk. Stay awake in class milk. Pour it by the glass milk. Is that a mustache milk? Boom, 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 bass milk. Smile in your face milk. Go for the goal before you know you going all the way milk. Milky high, milky hey. I hope you have a milky day. Live your best life milk. You out this world, Milky Way. Put you on the spot milk. Question, got milk? Show us what you got. Hashtag got milk.
Ready to step into summer? Like really soak it all in. Set your sights on a breathtaking view. Explore a fresh coast right outside your door. Be awed by the awe-inspiring. Or savor a meal in the very place it was grown. Well, isn't it time you experienced the wonders of Wisconsin?
How are you feeling today? This question has taken on a whole new meaning lately. Now, more than ever, it's important to reach out to your family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers and ask about their health. Studies have shown that 70% of people have delayed getting health care or know someone who has. Someone you care about might be doing the same thing. Your simple, thoughtful question could start a conversation to help them get the care they need. At Ascension, Wisconsin, appointments are available now. We have strict safety precautions in place for your safety and our care. ERs at our hospitals are open 24/7, and ask about virtual visits. As always, we are here for you when you need us. So, how are you feeling today? Make sure you get the care you need at getascensionwisconsincare.com.
The people of Milwaukee are something. Making something new, something special, making change. Yes, this is Milwaukee, where alleyways turn to art galleries and MVPs are more valuable off the court. A place powered by the people, making their city a bona fide worldwide phenomenon. So come and feel a little bit of that people power for yourself.
Farming is more than just a job because it demands so much of you. Every day I'm with the people that I care about the most. We accomplish or we fail together.
Support Wisconsin dairy farmers. Buy Wisconsin cheese and dairy.
The 2020 Tour of America's Dairyland is brought to you by Quick Trip, going the extra mile for you. By Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. By Hyper Ice, move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including the Echelon Racing League. Just wrapping up some exciting para racing and hand cycling at the virtual Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. Taking a look at our para results here with Mark Anthony Sanchez taking his second win in 2 days. Our winner yesterday in Shorewood, Charles McDonald, holds on for second today. And then Aiden Porter going to take third with Jason Kimball in fourth place on the day at 2.85 average watts per kilogram. And then Adam Allen in fifth. And then it looks like Pernguau down in sixth. So nice to see Sanchez getting another win out there. When you're hot, as we like to say. But really an all-star field out there racing today, and it is so cool to be able to connect with these riders again. I'm kind of starting to feel like I'm back at Tour of America's Dairyland. You know, a lot of these names we come to know and love over the years of calling the races, and so it's nice to see some familiar names here in paracycling, and I'm sure these riders are connecting here as well.
Yeah, and really exciting for me just to be able to watch some racing for the first time in a long time. And I think it's getting everybody's excitement level raised as we get into the spring and the summer here for some more racing, whether that's virtual or out on the road. So really great to see. And, you know, thanks again to all the folks at Tour of America's Dairyland and Bill and company and for just including our paracyclists here and what's really an integrated event. So thanks again for that, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate having the riders here, and obviously your help in spreading the word as we take a look at the rest of our results for the day. These are the hand cycling classification riders. As you see, Gustav Nielsen taking the win there with a pretty clear lead off the front. Stephanie Moss, the name for second place, with Samir Basmaji in third, and then Christian Ramirez in fourth. Colin Dixon takes fifth place overall. Again, these will be broken out by classification through through the 1 through 5 classifications. And then Funderburk, Bestine, and Andre 6, 7, and 8 with Sotopdin in 9th place, and then Dan Steets rounding out the top 10. Ian, we had a chance to show off para and hand cycling to a lot of new people today. If you want to get involved, if you know somebody that wants to race, what's the best advice that we're giving people to maybe give this sport a shot?
Well, these days we have a lot more integrated programs out there, a lot more coaches who have paracycling expertise. So the easiest way is to reach out to your local cycling club. And if you don't find a program there, you can reach out to another partner organization of ours called Move United, or another program called Challenge Athletes Foundation. And there's lots of opportunities, including equipment grants for new athletes. And then, of course, if you're looking for some information more from a high performance standpoint and competitive side, you can look at USA Cycling for integrated events, and also US Paracycling website, where we have a lot of information about our national team and high performance program.
Right on. Well, keep up the great work, and I know we're all looking forward to 2020/2021 Paralympics in Tokyo. I know we're hoping to bring home a lot of medals there. So best of luck to Team USA.
Thanks for having us, and appreciate the time. Thanks again, Brad.
All right, well, some exciting racing in our para and hand cycling as we now get ready to move into our pro women's races coming up here next as we bring back Frankie and Todd. Guys, it's been exciting racing so far today, but I got to say, I'm a little sad. We're getting down to not only the last race of our virtual Tour of America's Dairyland, our last race of our virtual Cafe Hollander Downer Classic, but Frankie, the last race of the ERL here. I know there's going to be a lot of riders that'll be looking forward to having the break, but I don't know what I'm going to do not seeing your smiling face every other week on my computer screen.
It's going to be weird having, the ERL series has been fantastic. And so it's been fun, almost watching these riders develop. Like, they've gotten used to the platform. They started doing better. All of a sudden their watts are going up. Riders who are getting dropped are winning. And it's like a whole shift of riders that struggled in the beginning and then have figured it out. And all of them really, when I've interviewed them, have all talked about how they all of a sudden have this increase in power, increase in speed, how much better they are than what they were last year. And so that's been fun to see. And so, I definitely see positive signs of this being a regular winter series, and I think it's going to grow in popularity.
Well, Todd, let's get back into it as we are now just 5 minutes away from the start of our pro women's race. Before we get to focusing on today, I want to go back to yesterday because a lot of times we see a predictor of what happened on day 1 or day 3, in this case, moving into day 4. Christy Tracy with the early attack yesterday, but it was the Jackie Godby show once again as Godby got back up to the front. She was just playing with these riders in the field, Todd.
It's the puzzle that all of these women are trying to solve. How do you overcome the Jackie Godby machine that, we see some good numbers prior to the last 300 meters, but in that last 300 meters, those numbers go into the stratosphere. And this is the challenge that our riders face today. One more chance to solve the puzzle that is Jackie Godby.
I know there's going to be a lot of riders, Frankie, that will throw everything they have at the problem today because you only have one more shot. So I'm hoping that we see, I hate to call them desperate late race attacks out there, but certainly some riders maybe trying to flip the script out there. Again, Godby yesterday taking the win with a 4.34 average watts per kilogram. These are ridiculous numbers for Godby that she's been putting out here in the ERL. And then Eleanor Wiseman and Christy Tracy every single day have been sprinting it out. Look at the gap there, 2.53 behind for Eleanor Wiseman and 0.273 back for Christy Tracy. So always a close sprint between these three with Godby, Wiseman, and Tracy. Maybe the biggest question will be, can anyone else survive in that final group of 3 to the finish line today? Because we saw the selection made down to the last 3 yesterday. So riders like Anna Strello, Stephanie Sidlick, maybe trying to hang on out there and get up to stay with the final group out there. But Frankie, that's going to be tough because Jackie Godby has just been able to set her own tempo, and it's not an easy tempo. So for a lot of riders, it's about trying to hold on to the Jackie Godby rocket today.
Yeah, and she's going to be, setting the tempo that she's been doing. I was just looking at the start list, and of course we're going to have probably some riders included in the race that aren't on our start list, but generally it's all the regular suspects. There's a couple new riders that are in there, like Ione Johnson, Kristen Falk. Other than that, everybody else. Now, Doble Hickok is listed on our start list. I'm not sure if she's actually taking the start, but it's going to be interesting on how they can do. Velocity Vixen really has been doing a fantastic job picking up so many points to be able to put them in that top spot with Team Infinite right behind them. But really, Jackie Godby alone, Triple X Racing Athletico, has picked up almost all of those 431 points. And today being the last race, I'm sure Jackie Godby wants to go out on a high note.
Godby definitely likes some good racing action, so I'm sure she'll make it interesting out there, as we should be seeing it pretty soon. Godby getting ready in her pain cave as everybody gets the warm-up in here. Todd, you got to prime the engine before the start here. So for most of these riders, this race started about 30 minutes ago when you get on the trainer and start warming up.
Right. The difference, one of the primary differences that riders discover virtual racing versus IRL is that the starts on the virtual racings can be like releasing a dozen caffeinated puppies out into your living room. It's just chaos. Everything goes everywhere. You see red numbers going crazy. We're inside 30 seconds now, and you're going to see all of those numbers in the watts per kilogram column just go shooting up 7, 8, 9, 10, might even see some 12 watts per kilogram 15 seconds away. And that is not how you typically see a race start in real life. The riders will roll away. They'll find their way into the course. So here we go. We're going to cue it up one more time. It's the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. The women are underway.
You saw the explosive power, like you said, very different at the start than the in real life. You would have to do like a standing start, almost like a time trial start on the track. You need the gates in order to simulate the power or the way that these start. But even then, because the riders are already spinning when the flag drops. So that's why they rocket off the line here. And you can see already some riders starting to find some trouble at the back. No thanks to the pace being set up at the front, but look how quickly everyone is responding, Frankie. They're spread out pretty much across the entire road as no one wants to get left behind early. That's the key. Just make sure that you make it through the first 10 minutes. There's a good chance you make it through the next 20.
Everybody wants to stay on that front line to make sure they're in the group. We had, I think, 22 riders registered to be able to start. Obviously, I think we have a little bit less that actually took the start. But bringing in, I think Sidlick bringing in a little bit of reinforcements with their Canyon Esports team is, we talked about Kristen Falk being one of the new riders that hasn't done any of the other races before. She's on the start line, but a nice group here starting to form, and it's just a matter of keeping in contact, keeping in touch with each other, which should be a little bit easier because on a triangle, give or take, there's only 3 turns. And so, it should have a little bit easier time for them to be able to stay in contact, but you definitely want to be near the front.
All right, we have been checking in with the course here on Downer Avenue as Todd had a chance to visit a couple weeks ago. I want to go back to Milwaukee as Todd takes us through turn number 1.
We're on course for the Tour America's Dairyland. This time we're at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. Behind me is the intersection of Park and Downer Avenue, what we refer to as Turn 1. Now, as turns go, it's pretty mild-mannered. It's a 90-degree right-hander, standard fare for crit racing. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is over this way, because just past Turn 1 is where Benz sets up camp and hands out the Super Preme. If you're not familiar with the Super Preme, here's how that works. You slap down a little bit of cash. You get a wristband. You get beer. You get brats. And honestly, if I had $1 for each time Brad Soner has said, I'm in Wisconsin, I'm eating a brat, I'd have my own Super Preme. You get a T-shirt, and you get the pride and satisfaction of being part of something fantastic every year. This is so much fun to watch. Why? Well, sprinters, straight line. No big deal, right? Sprinters, straight line, right-hand turn. That's a problem that they have to solve. And every year, we have a great time watching these speedsters try and solve that problem to get to the Benz Super Preme line first. Turn number 1 here at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. We're on course.
They have unlimited brats. What do you want me to do, Todd? Of course I'm going to eat a brat. Turn 1 may be the more important turn on Downer Avenue than the last turn because everyone is sprinting for that Super Preme. But, Todd, it's really a race to that turn. I mean, if you can make it into Turn 1, you're probably going to win the Super Preme because that's got to be less than 100 meters from Turn 1 up to the Benz line.
Yeah, it's like a three-part puzzle, Brad. You have position into Turn 1. You're racing to have, the further up on the field you are, the more choices you have going into the turn. You can grab that apex and you can work the second portion of the puzzle, which is the turn. And then there's the third portion of the puzzle, which is staying on the gas until you cross that line. It's about 300 meters. So 3 parts, a lot of fun to watch every year.
And Frankie, as a team director and a rider, sometimes that Preme can outweigh the value of the win. Everyone likes to stand on the top step of the podium, but I think people like collecting a giant $5,000 check even more sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of these guys need gas money, need food money, and so sometimes if there's that much money, it outweighs the end prize list. And as a professional, honestly, a lot of riders travel around the criterium circuit. I call it cash cow weekends to be able to take home as much money as they can. And if the Super Preme is what gets the job done, they're going to put all their resources in trying to get that Super Preme and not focus as much on the win. But the problem is to win Downer Avenue is very, very prestigious. And so you definitely want to be able to put that on your Palmars at the end of the day.
We're seeing Christy Tracy setting tempo here up at the front into the red zone. And the rest of the field responding, but that does cause some trouble at the back. We're already down to, looks like 10 riders. Steph Sidlick going to be number 10 at the back there. So Tracy, Godby, Folk. Is this Kristen Folk back?
Kristen Falk. Kristen Falk with the Canyon team.
Name is jumping around on my screen here, and now Stephanie Sidlick gets up to the front. A pair of Canyon Esports riders in here, so we were talking about the teamwork, the possibility of teamwork in here. Canyon Esports might be able to pull something off to try and catch Jackie Godby off guard a little later in the race. Going a little further back in the group, this is Little in 11th, back to Monahan in 12th for the Amy D Foundation squad as they are stuck in a tough spot with nobody to work with, nobody to draft off of. So we'll see if they can get back up into the group. All right, as our leaders continue to tap out the tempo, I want to bring back Bill Koch, race director at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Bill, we were talking earlier about the para racing. Obviously exciting to have high-level women's racing at the Tour of America's Dairyland as well. But we're talking about the pro races here, but this is really a weekend of racing across categories. Everyone races at Toad.
Especially for the Italian sausage. That's an inside joke. Anyway, it's so juniors. We say we offer world-class cycling for everyone. So other than the cash prize levels, we just want it to be the same experience. Jerseys, trophies. We've had a local guy that's made trophies for us for years. Everybody gets one at the winner's level, whether you're a junior or you're a pro or you're a master's rider or you're a hand cyclist. All the milk that goes with it. Brad's consumed 100 cartons in 1 year. It just goes on and on and on. So we definitely spend a lot of time making sure that everybody feels the love.
And trying to have a good experience for everyone as well. I know you guys really focus on the amenities for the riders, making sure that there's a good medical team on site, making sure that registration is a smooth process. It can be stressful racing, and I think Toad does a really good job of just making it a good overall experience for riders, especially those that travel in from out of town.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things like neutral support. Everybody gets access to that. Medical. There are a lot of riders that go in and check in with medical every day who have maybe crashed a couple days prior to that just to get their bandages checked and replaced and things like that. And they're always happy to do that. So it's not just a triage on site and then, hey, good luck with the rest of your life. They take great, great care of them all day, all week long, the 11 days there. And the cities, they all have this welcoming feel. So as you go from Downer to, let's say, Wauwatosa on Sunday, it's just a different feel, but the same Wisconsin hospitality.
And, of course, a massive junior field as well with the junior series. I know a lot of them take advantage of the housing opportunities available at Tour of America's Dairyland.
Yeah, we have two great relationships with two local universities, Carroll University and Marquette University, and they both offer great housing. We put a lot of staff. You guys have all stayed at Carroll. The dorms there are so plush. I mean, they've got private sleeping rooms, underground parking, free breakfast in the morning, and for kids, for juniors, it's $23 a night. So how can you beat that?
Makes it a lot more affordable and a lot more accessible to bring a group of juniors down. I know we have juniors from really all over the world. Big Canadian contingent always comes to race. We have a pretty good international turnout for our junior series, but it's also a national series as well. Seeing the Masters come from all over the country race together, it's sort of like an unofficial national championship, if you will. There's a lot of kind of smack talking between the regions. I know you look forward to welcoming like the Florida crew every year. They always bring their squad up. There's always a Southeast crew that comes to race, and they always want to go up against the Wisconsin riders.
Well, we have, our biggest outside of Wisconsin and Illinois are the two biggest areas, but actually Colorado, California, Florida, Texas, and North Carolina bring large contingents of people, and a growing group of folks from New York as well, not even mentioning the international riders that show up.
So there you go. Get out of your rut, quit racing the same people, and come race some new people and new courses at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Bill, I got to congratulate you on almost wrapping up our first virtual Tour of America's Dairyland here. Normally, you and I start cracking some celebratory beverages as we get down towards the last race of the weekend. I've got my Nature's Touch chocolate milk ready. I know you do as well. Can I get a check on the Quick Trip Glazers? It was 6 last time we checked in. I'm just trying to keep you honest to make sure that you're sticking to your 2021 training plan as we're getting together our announcer and promoter race. Uh-oh, looks like it's missing some. Wait a minute.
It's down to 3.
Red alert, red alert.
Though. I'm working on it. Don't worry, I'm working on it.
All right, thank you very much, Bill, and keep up the good work. Can't wait to be back and see you in person this summer.
Oh, boy, the Glazers are coming down. That's, I don't know about that. Yeah, Bill mentioned the trophies. My guy by the name of Mike Froh, he races his bike a lot, but the impact that he has is that he goes into his workshop and creates these fantastic trophies that our podiums get, our overalls get on the final day. For the series, and they're art. I mean, they're fantastic. They look so good. So a huge shout out to Michael Froh and his impact, as Bill was pointing out, so many in the community having an impact on this series.
Thing about Toad, also from my experience of racing there, but also as an announcer, is, over 11 days of racing, a lot of these riders, you're all racing against the same guys over and over. And it's juniors or the seniors, the pro ranks, whatever it may be. You develop these healthy rivalries that are fun to be able to watch. It's like these stories start coming out. One rider having some bad luck, and then he's trying to redeem himself and take a win, or he just lost in a sprint. And that's fun to be able to see develop over the 11 days of racing. Some of these healthy rivalries. Now, if you get into the Masters, some of them can be a little bit more contentious, these rivalries, when you're talking about some of the battles they go apart with each other, like, bringing up, like, let's say the White brothers that tend to kind of get into a heated argument with many of the other veteran or master riders. But it's always exciting. It's always fun to watch. And it's interesting to see, some riders fall short, some riders fall to the top of the occasion. Regardless, every day there's a special story from each and every rider.
Yep. Todd, sometimes those Masters categories are more hotly contested than the pro categories. I mean, you make a scoring mistake in the pro races, sometimes it just slips by for 2 or 3 days before you know it. But you make a scoring mistake in the Masters, you're going to find out immediately.
There's a number of positions that have to wear Kevlar each day, and the CR, or chief referee, is prime in that regard, because it's typically the CR's job to get in front of the Masters field and remind them that they have family at home. We're here to have fun. and it's just a bike race because the Masters get incredibly cranked up. Ryan and Rob White, a couple twins that are so much fun watching race. Yeah, I mean, they can be competitive as to who's first in the coffee line. The interesting dynamic there is that as twins, unless you know what the bib number is, as a competitor, you might not be sure if you are following the wheel of the series leader or a decoy, because they're pretty much identical. Even their mom has trouble telling them apart sometimes.
That's why we got them the cow print leader's jersey, so we could tell the difference when they're out on course, although I suspect that sometimes they switch the jersey just to mess with us, just to make things tough on us. One of the cool parts about Tour of America's Dairyland, the leaders' jerseys, all cow print. They have different colors for every category, and everyone races for a jersey. It's always cool to get a winner's jersey at the end of it. Frankie, we're talking about the different categories. Super important for the women's field as well. I know Toad is really proud of the multiple categories that they offer for women's racing. A lot of times the women's field just gets clumped into one race or two races, but the ability to break out different categories is really important at Tour of America's Dairyland.
It makes it more inviting, and that's exactly what you want to grow the sport, and you want to have it inviting to be able to bring the women in. And it's not fair if you're a beginner woman, and it's the same with the guys. If the guys have 5 different categories, the women should have 3 or 4. And so if you're new to the sport and want to try bike racing or getting involved in racing, you don't want to get on the start line with Skylar Schneider and Sam Schneider, who are just going to rip your legs off and drop you in the first 30 meters. And so having those different categories really is a big part of Tour of America's Dairyland and encouraging women to come out and race, and it's been super successful. I was just noticing also, we talked about with Jackie Godby yesterday and how she was talking about how the sweat has her rear brake, corroding the rear brake and having to change out the shifting cables and braking cables. Well, I was riding this morning, and of course that started going through my mind, so I decided to try my rear brake. Sure enough, completely stuck, frozen solid, would not move.
Really?
So, yeah, really. I was very surprised. I'm like, holy cow, this exact thing happened to me. And so I had to pull on it a little bit to try to get it to move. Not that I was using the rear brake, but it's toast. And so I'm gonna do what she's doing. I'm gonna go find a towel. I'm gonna wrap it around my rear brake to try to prevent any more corrosion for God knows where it's going. Yeah, so it definitely happens.
Good thing you checked. Now you know.
No, exactly. I would have taken the bike outside and crashed.
All right, I want to bring Bill Koch back in here. Bill, we were talking about the women's races earlier, the importance of the women's races at the Tour of America's Dairyland. I know you guys have all kinds of ways to support the women's races, programs to help with entry fees. You have the women's dinner every night. Just talk about some of those programs at the Tour of America's Dairyland.
Yeah, we've been very, very focused on being as friendly and open and inviting to women's races as we possibly can for a long time. And with equal pay, we started that a long, long time ago. The Ben's Preem actually used to be, definitely focused more on the guys, and we asked Vince to make that equal, and he did so the very first year we asked him that. So we started coffee rides last year, which is a community event for just women, and we asked a lot of our pro women to show up and just sort of lead those rides. And we had 2 of those last year. That's all started at Colectivo, which is our coffee sponsor. The first day there were 20 women on a Saturday, and on Thursday there were 50 women that showed up for that ride. So we're doing a women's Cat 2-3 for the very first time this year, which has been a large request from a lot of women, and we're really happy to do that. And also, first, you're hearing it here first, we are changing the pro women's and pro men's events to both be 75 minutes. So it used to be 60 for the women and 90 for the men. It's just the women's dinner has been a huge success. Usually 100 people, 100 women at that party. The only guy that's usually there is me, which is really uncomfortable. And I just come in and say a few words and get out of there. Anyway, so we leave it up to them to organize the whole event and just do what they want to do there. Sometimes there's a special guest speaker. It just means so much to us. So we're really happy for the support they've shown us over the years.
It's been awesome watching the women's field grow, especially at the highest level, but all the amateur categories. We see a lot of big groups come. I know you have a few coaches and teams that will bring their sort of new riders to the Tour of America's Dairyland every year, because it's a great place to train and really learn about bike racing. And I know you guys work a lot to kind of match up riders with races and categories so they can get that experience.
Yeah, so Laurel Green comes from California for years and has brought a group of mostly Cat 3-4 novice women. Last year, in 2019, it was a pro women's field. We're working closely with Aisha McGowan to allow a diverse group of ladies to possibly race for the first time this year. And Aisha is doing a lot of fundraising on that front to offer these scholarships, and we're offering free race entries for those ladies as well. And it's just really the junior team from Manitoba is always very centric on young females. They come down here every year to race. They trailer. You can always find a trailer somewhere on the course. So it's really the young kids, and it's just seeing them interspersed in the women's dinner from the window, of course. It's just really fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, what a better way to learn than learning from the experts. I mean, we have riders like Peter Mullins, Katie Compton coming to race the pro women's race. They're always happy to kind of hang out and chat with the junior riders. So it's a really cool opportunity to see some of those stars up close in person and have some interaction with them, learn some tips.
And Katie Compton actually has been a guest pace car driver for us for the last 2 years.
I'm sure
That's
she wore out the tires on that one. I know Katie fast on the bike and pretty fast car driver as well. I think she likes to race her BMW around for fun. So hopefully she took it easy on the Toad Mini.
For sure. Subaru.
Sorry,
I think we got rid of Mini a few years ago. Yeah, we'd welcome it back.
It's Mini compared to her BMW.
Right.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. Let's check back in with our pro women's race out on course, because we're getting down to it at 35K to the line here, just over 20 minutes in, working through some lap traffic here. As you take a look at the gap, it is a very clear selection that has been made out there today. You see between 10th and 11th place is about 2.5K. So this group of 10 hanging in here, Frankie.
Yeah, they're hanging in there. And right now I'm cheering. I was like, Holly Larson, come on. Just get out of the saddle. Look, she's in the red. She's doing everything she can to try to stay in contact. So close. And so this has been good. And you know what? I like that it's been a nice group, a little bit bigger group being able to ride. And, you know, for whatever reason, it's very encouraging for a lot of the other riders. You know, I think a few of the other riders that have been dominating this race series so far, maybe holding back a little bit to be able to allow a little bit bigger group for a little bit length of time. But Holly Larson, a great job. I mean, 20 minutes of hanging in there. And again, all you have to do is look away from the screen for a moment. You get caught on the back, and it happens so quickly that all of a sudden you're distanced. And the thing is, it's very different than in real life. Once you have 3 bike lengths, the speed difference, you just can't catch back up. And so that's hard on the RGT platform. But our first group of riders doing a fantastic job staying together. And obviously, this is a technical issue here.
Yeah, showing 0 power here, so this is a dropout for Falk, as that's going to be it for her. Once you lose power on this platform, obviously you're going to lose contact. We saw her slowly losing contact with Larson there. I think that was probably the early stages, the internet flickering in and out for her. So bummer for Falk, as she has a technical and looks like she will be out of this one. We'll see if she does get back in, but obviously losing significant time right now, probably going to eliminate her chances of fighting the podium today. So now Larson is left alone to try to chase up to the front at 140 meters back to try to catch up to this group. Todd, it's a bummer. You hate to see it, but I guess just like real life racing, flat tires, drop your chain, stuff happens.
Yeah, we have been talking about how to incorporate preems into virtual racing. We're also going to have to look at the free lap, especially for racing crit courses. Then you get into the process of determining what constitutes, a valid mechanical, and I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Nonetheless, with 33K to go, we were watching 4 Velocity Vixen riders. From the team standpoint, Velocity Vixen and their very cool virtual jersey The emotional favorite, Holly Larson, now sliding backwards about 200 meters off the back of the field. But the Canadian Rogers, Darlene Crone, still up there. 4 Velocity Vixens along with Nobles. So they may, we'll see if they're able to hang together. They may have 3 riders in that final group coming to the line. Larger than this group has been at this point in the previous 3 days of racing.
And with Kristen Falk having that technical issue, that leaves Stephanie Sidlick by herself because she had a teammate there from the Canyon Esports team. So now Sidlick is on her own. And you talk about a technical issue. What about Ben Thomas, right? Who loses a pedal on their indoor trainer bike?
Yeah, bizarre issue for Ben Thomas. Not on my list of things that I thought would go wrong. Unfortunately for him, we don't have Jose Alcala with neutral race support like we do at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Normally, that would have been an easy fix for Jose. He would have been in and out with a smile on his face and back into the race in no time, but no neutral support here in the virtual world. We still got to work on that, Todd. I'm not sure how that would work. You need an IT desk, I guess. You have to call the helpline to get help with your internet.
Right. Yeah. We also the equivalent. We're talking about Preems. We're talking about free laps. We're talking about neutral support. We're also going to be looking for an opportunity to put together this leaderboard and have a sense of where the teams are, where the individuals are. This is something that we do on stage. We get a lot of help from the chief judge. We were talking about the chief referee, the chief judge, especially on the final day. There's so much math going on. We know these riders are looking at it. We mentioned Doble Hickok showing up on the start line, on the start list, but not on the start line. So Sidlick, yet another opportunity to move that much closer. But another thing we can add to virtual racing is a little bit more insight into what these races are, how close they are, what the points available are, where someone would have to finish, because we know the riders are doing this. So it would be interesting to have that insight into the racing process, especially as we close up 4 days of Tour of America's Dairyland and quite a long run with the Echelon Racing Series.
Well, the problem is then we'd have to do math, and you're talking to our math team right now. So between you, me, and Frankie, I'm not sure that we could do it, to be honest. We really rely on the USA Cycling officials. The timing and scoring people do a great job. I know we have one-to-go event services up at Tour of America's Dairyland. I am every day thankful to have them at a race, and our officials just work incredibly hard every race around the country. So a big thank you to all the officials, keeping everyone on track and certainly making the announcers look better, because without them, well, it sounds a lot like this, Todd.
Well, with our math skills, we would have Jackie Godby losing.
No, I'm pretty sure the dog of the day could pick her as the likely winner. And we've had some pretty smart dogs, but I'm saying, we need to limit ourselves to 6 Glazers minus 3 Glazers, leave you with and then you fill in the blank. I think that's where we're operating.
Well, in general, it's 30 points for the win. So if you take a win, you get 30 points. And right now, Godby obviously has stacked up a ton of points. But with Doble Hickok, who was sitting second overall in the series, she's dropped down tremendously. Christy Tracy has had a second and a third, so she has moved up to be able to jump in front of Doble Hickok. And Stephanie Sidlick has moved in right behind. And what I'm not sure, Sidlick or Eleanor Weissman, where they're at, So I'm almost positive Christy Tracy's going to move into second. But after that, it's a little bit more up for grabs, as Weissman obviously would love to be able to get some more points. And you can see this is a fantastic front group of 10, all marking each other pretty well right now.
Which just goes to show you how important the consistency of racing is in these series. And that's a big part of racing up at Tour of America's Dairyland as well. We talk about how the riders want to fight to get to the start line every day, whether it's medical issues or mechanical issues. You're always overcoming something to race 11 days. You're just not going to be able to race 11 days in a row without having some bump in the road. But our towed riders and the support at the Tour of America's Dairyland always help the riders get there, help them get to the start, and hopefully the finish lines as well. So a little attack from Jackie Godby there. She has reeled things back in, so it looks like things are calming down just a little bit after that selection being taken down to what is now 8 riders up in the front with the loss of Larson Crone, the last rider tacked in there at 8th. Let's go back to Downer Avenue one final time to check in on our in real life course with Todd.
We're on course at Tour of America's Dairyland. It's the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. Turn 4. Yeah, get out the binoculars. Riders coming around this turn. It's a soft right-hander off of Bradford onto Downer Avenue. And then the enticing sight of the finish line. Fame and glory, your name being logged in the history of the Downer Classic. It's a ways off. It's all about patience. You go too soon, you're out of cookies before you get to the line. Time it out perfectly, you're going to the top step of the podium. It's fun to watch every year. We're looking forward to it again this year here at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic. We're on course.
It's almost always a photo finish on Downer Avenue, Todd. I think every year we see a close finish. Sometimes we'll see riders that are able to go a lap up on the field on that course because it's so short. A lot of times we see riders get around, and then sometimes it gets really chaotic at those finishes because we've got lapped riders finishing behind our lead riders in that front group. So never a dull day on Downer Avenue, that's for sure.
Yeah, we started our 4 days of racing with the Janesville race where the last turn is really close to the line on Parker. This is a different scenario. That turn coming off of Bradford, it's a soft one, so it's not as critical in terms of scrubbing speed. And so then you have this long finish line on Downer Avenue, and so we see the riders setting it up. If they have team help, those lead-outs are setting up. And so oftentimes, as you say, riders are able to get in the position they want. They'll find the wheel they want. And we do use that one-to-go services camera a lot at the finish line of Downer Avenue.
Todd, you looked like you picked a sunny day to be able to go out and do those stand-up pieces. I was wondering, who is your camera person?
It's always sunny in Wisconsin, Frankie. It's always sunny. That's standard operating procedure. The cows need it, and so they just say it's always sunny in Wisconsin. So I did some of that myself, but we had a young man by the name of Quinn who came in and helped us out with some of those moves. I couldn't have done that dog of the day move in Grafton without his expert help. So I'm very appreciative of him taking his day and traveling around to the different venues. And on that shot, you may have noticed I was standing on the street. My life was being protected, literally, by Bill Koch, who parked his wrapped Subaru out in traffic so that bus that was coming for us would actually move out of the way and not put me under it. So Bill and Quinn making it happen.
Who knew? I thought you were just out there. I thought you were just out there with your ring light, just doing the stand-ups. But that looked great, and some great video from Ben's earlier as well. I know that was pretty cool to see. Tom in there with Vince. Good look inside Ben's Cycle and Fitness. Frankie, have you had a chance to go to Ben's, the actual shop in Milwaukee yet?
No, I didn't. No, run around the course and been on the Hurt Street with all the food, and I never get, I just end up eating so much I can't end up moving after that. So I've never been to that bike shop.
Todd, it's a cool shop, isn't it? It's they have really cool, unique bikes there as well that they sort of source and put together. But I go there for my single speed gear. That's like my single speed Walmart. That's where I get all my fixed gear stuff from.
Yeah, and being a single-speed expert as you are, I'm sure that it means a lot that they do so much. It's a very vibrant single-speed community there in Milwaukee. I want to tip the cap to Vince because, as you know, Brad, he loves generating the Supreme. He hates being on stage talking about it. So the fact that Tom Schuler was able to talk him into doing an interview, Vince, hats off to you, my friend. That was going against the grain, and I think he did a great job.
Tom Schuler, the expert interviewer, a real Barbara Walters over there. So thank you very much, Tom. Well, back in with our women's group.
Sorry, Brad. Yeah, we've seen a lot of attacking going on right now. We saw a big attack from Christy Tracy where she went into the red, and you could see she immediately got into her aerodynamic position, which is that's her comfort zone. Obviously, you have no advantage of being on the aero bars than sitting up, but she was just attacking. Some others were attacking, so I'm sure there's some riders in the back right now hanging on for dear life because we've seen different riders really going into the red, pushing the pace, trying to keep this movement going. Sidlick looking very good right there. Obviously, Godby turning it over. And one thing you guys were talking about earlier also is that, different riders have different kind of cadence styles, but generally when you're racing virtual, you tend to ride a bigger gear than normal because you're not able to just spin and be able to just sit behind and kind of rest up because you can't produce the watts needed in order to keep up. You have to be in a bigger gear than normal. So generally, if you're out riding, you might be 95 RPM. Virtual, you're sitting usually around 80 to 85 RPM.
A little slower cadence
that's a good
on the
point,
trainer.
Frankie. Yeah, that's a good point, Frankie, because your brain actually tells you things based on how ensconced, if you will, into the experience. And so when you hit a downhill, when you hit an uphill, there are responses that your brain says, okay, shift gears, increase your cadence. Not always the best ride. I did a 2-hour ride on the trainer yesterday that involved some climbing. And each time on the downhill, I'm like, okay, I can coast now. But it was this cognitive dissonance, if you will, because you had to keep the trainer turning over. Otherwise, you were going to zero out. So looking at our front group, 7 riders now. And so we've whittled away. It looks like Noble has been kicked out the back, fighting. Not quite out of contention yet, but we're watching those numbers, 120 meters. Main time,
that's hard to bring back. Cheyenne Noble from Velocity Vixen. She's out of Pittsburgh. She's actually a principal engineer at a naval nuclear laboratory. She has her finger on the button, you could say.
Yeah.
Wow.
So losing 120 meters. Once you get, like I said, once you get 20 meters off the back, you're done. So, just the pace that they're setting. 24 still. We got a lot of racing to go, don't we? 24.8 kilometers to the line. We can still have a long ways to go. As you can see, Cheyenne putting in a big effort here.
Trying to catch back up, although doing a nice job of staying calm here. It's easy to panic when you go off the back in an RGT race, but you want to make sure that you just don't redline. Slowly try and reel it back in because it's really easy to explode trying to chase back up. So we'll keep an eye on Cheyenne as she tries to get back into the front group. We're going to take one last break here from the virtual Tour of America's Dairyland. When we come back, we're finishing up the Pro Men at the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic.
Milk, yeah. Guzzle milk, drink it all. Make a milk waterfall. Cookie milk, stack it tall. Milk with no rhythm at all. Make you run fast milk. Stay awake in class milk. Pour it by the glass milk. Is that a mustache milk? Boom, 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 bass milk. Smile in your face milk. Go for the goal before you know you going all the way milk. Milky high, milky hay. I hope you have a milky day. Live your best life milk. You out this world, Milky Way. Put you on the spot milk. Question, got milk? Show us what you got. Hashtag got milk.
Ready to step into summer? Like really soak it all in. Set your sights on a breathtaking view. Explore a fresh coast right outside your door. Be awed by the awe-inspiring. Or savor a meal in the very place it was grown. Well, isn't it time you experienced the wonders of Wisconsin?
How are you feeling today? This question has taken on a whole new meaning lately. Now, more than ever, it's important to reach out to your family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers and ask about their health. Studies have shown that 70% of people have delayed getting health care or know someone who has. Someone you care about might be doing the same thing. Your simple, thoughtful question could start a conversation to help them get the care they need. At Ascension, Wisconsin, appointments are available now. We have strict safety precautions in place for your safety and our care. ERs at our hospitals are open 24/7, and ask about virtual visits. As always, we are here for you when you need us. So, how are you feeling today? Make sure you get the care you need at getascensionwisconsincare.com.
The people of Milwaukee are something. Making something new, something special, making change. Yes, this is Milwaukee, where alleyways turn to art galleries and MVPs are more valuable off the court. A place powered by the people, making their city a bona fide worldwide phenomenon. So come and feel a little bit of that people power for yourself.
Farming is more than just a job because it demands so much of you. Every day I'm with the people that I care about the most. We accomplish or we fail together.
Support Wisconsin dairy farmers. Buy Wisconsin cheese and dairy.
...2020 Echelon Racing League and Virtual Tour of America's Dairyland is brought to you by Quick Trip, going the extra mile for you. By Project Echelon, educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity. By Hyper Ice, move better and enhance your recovery with Hyper Ice. And by Nations, enhancing the reach of esports, including the Echelon Racing League. And welcome back. Getting down to it here in our pro women's race on the final day of the Virtual Tour of America's Dairyland and the final day of the 2021 Echelon Racing League as we get ready to wrap up what has been a stellar season for the pro women with a dominant performance by Jackie Godby over the last few months, but some real stars emerging as well. And you're looking at all of them in this front group right here. Every single one of these riders in the front group, Frankie, has really proved themselves over the last, let's say, 6 months of virtual racing here. If you made this group, you belong here today.
I mean, a fast race on the triangle for Downer. These are known names. A little bit of a new one to be able to be up here, but Rogers is there. Previous, she's out of Milwaukee, and then God being very bright, racing here, still 21, so pretty good amount of racing going as Sidlick now is going on the attack, trying to be able to get up to, I believe, where Godby and I think Godby's just sitting in front of them right now.
Yeah, I think she's right up there. Todd, we were talking about this at the top of the show today. This is your last chance to try to flip the script on Jackie Godby. So I'm wondering if Stephanie Sidlick, who is normally maybe a more conservative rider in this field, might be looking at this like, hey, let's see if we can get to the top of her. Now Anna Rogers is going to go over the top of this group. So we're seeing new names on the front, Todd. I think they are throwing the kitchen sink at Jackie Godby today.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they, Brad? I mean, this is the last day of racing. We know that she can make it happen at the end. So if there was any sense of conserving energy on day 1, day 2, day 3 of the Tour of America's Dairyland Virtual, that's gone. So, yeah, this is going to be the all-out effort. This is going to be max watts at the line. Plus, we have some personal goals, perhaps. So I'm watching Darlene Crone. She was 6th yesterday. And Velocity Vixen doing a great job in the team competition. But she's hanging in there. 6th yesterday might just be the encouragement she needs to stay in that group and see if she can't take crack at least at the top 3. And, of course, there's always that top step. I mean, we've seen other riders have mechanicals. Anything's possible. That's why you race it. 20K to go. Looks like the Canadian Rogers now having a little problem. Yeah, Velocity Vixen starting to hold off. And so Crone is going to become the torchbearer for the Velocity Vixen squad. Darlene going to try and hang in there as long as she can.
And Cheyenne Noble back here in 8th place, a little further back, riding alone. Remember, we saw Noble trying to chase back up. Last time we checked in, she was at about 150 meters back, but now looking at 600 plus up to Rogers and Strello up in 6th and 7th. So we go a little further back, looking at 9, 10, and 11. This is Holly Larson in 9th place. And then we'll go back to 10 and 11, which is a pair of Amy D Foundation riders with Monahan and Little sitting back in 10th and 11th place. So back up to the front. Nice to see some more people joining in the Fan Zoom over on the Tour of America's Dairyland Facebook page as well. They've got the link up where they're going to be giving away some prize packs in the official Toad Fan Zoom to watch the Echelon Racing League here. So if you're watching live with us today, head on over to the Tour of America's Dairyland Facebook page. They've got the link to the Fan Zoom there, and you can hang out with some of the other Toad spectators watching today and maybe get a chance to pick up a prize pack. So hello to Roland, Chris, Marianne, Paula, Bill, all over in the Fan Zoom.
Subaru, at one point, a sponsor of our Dog of the Day competition, but Froome Family Farms has stepped up huge, and we are so excited about that. It's always great to have a sponsor for the Dog of the Day competition, because then you can go nuts. You put together a nice little package. And we've got Hessen Duckenpfeffer, one of the, you almost have to stick a pinky in the air when you serve this to your pooch, because it's that fancy. Hessen Duckenpfeffer from Froome Family Farms. That's going to be our focus this June. Each dog competing for the Dog of the Day competition. Looking forward to the delectable delight of some Hessen Duckenpfeffer. I'm going to get Walter going on the test committee here prior to June so that I can get daily reviews from him as to how he's enjoying his Hessen Duckenpfeffer.
We talked about riders flying in from out of state. Now we're going to have dogs flying in from out of state for the Dog of the Day competition. Nice look at our Fan Zoom there. Hello to everybody. Chris Naven still has the hat on. I think it might be glued to his head because he was wearing that during the race as well. So I hope that it's not stuck there. But Chris, looking good. I like the enthusiasm, man, and good to see everybody over in the Fan Zoom. Bill holding things down over there, and looks like we got a few more people joining in here. So head on over again to the Tour of America's Dairyland Facebook page. They got the link up there. You can go hang out with these beautiful folks over in the Fan Zoom. And the dogs are coming out now, guys.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
This is what the people really want. Chris Naven knows what's up, man. This guy knows how to play to a crowd for sure. He's got the hat. We got the dog. We got the cheese going. Oh, yeah. Chris has got the setup. Jamie Tracy joining us as well down at the bottom. That is Christy Tracy's husband / Swanier / #1 fan. / office driver, I learned. Christy is going to be mounting a pretty full schedule this year, and they have a Sprinter van outfitted so that Jamie can drive in between races while Christy works her finance job from 8 to 5 in the passenger seat. So pretty cool to see the support for these riders and the support for the Tour of America's Dairyland over in the Fan Zoom. So thanks, guys. Todd, they're struggling with an issue that you know well over in the Fan Zoom. When you get dogs and cheese together, the dog wants to eat the cheese if you're not careful.
Yeah, we had a lot of dogs that say, hey, it's great to have a scarf, but I'm looking at that wheel of cheese you're going to be giving away at the end of the series. And since I won Dog of the Day, can I get in on that action? And you have to, lovingly say, yeah, you're the dog of today, but you're not the big cheese. Yes, I do talk to dogs. Known fact.
And they talk back at the Tour of America's Dairyland, which is the weirdest part.
Yes, indeed.
All right, Wiseman sitting on the front here as Godby surges up. Godby really does not like to be anywhere but first place. Doesn't it seem like, Frankie, if she just barely starts to get back into the group, she wants her nose to be in the wind, it seems like.
She likes to be in the front. I'm surprised you didn't ask her that question yesterday with, was it Simon that was in the race that kind of kept taking over the Godby position? I was wondering if that was kind of frustrating her or driving her a little bit crazy, because you're absolutely right, Brad. She wants to be on the front. She wants to ride her own tempo right now at 3.3 watts per kilogram. Many times we see her ride at 4 watts per kilogram. But it's interesting, this group, it's all individuals, right? There's nobody has two members from the same team. It's spread out between Team Infinite, Canyon Esports, Triple X, different squads, all riding in the front there together. And so it's a nice group right now, 15K to go. And, the speed's 35K an hour. I'm not sure anybody's going to be able to get away, but I wouldn't be surprised if, again, you've mentioned it many times, maybe in the last 5 kilometer you can take a flyer. So we just got to wait until we get to that point for now.
We're getting down to it at 15.5K to go here, just under 50 minutes in. So looking like we should go just over an hour here for the pro women. Now, remember, these last about 10 kilometers are going to be significantly faster than the tempo that they're setting here. Once Jackie Godby, Christy Tracy, riders like that really start to lift the tempo, maybe even Stephanie Sidlick here today, things are going to start to lift here. And I think that might even be happening right now, Todd. They're starting to come over the top of these riders as it's heating up here with 15K to go.
Yeah, it is. We're down to 6, so different day, same story, but it's good to have that 6. Godby gonna kind of turn the heat up a little bit, as you say, and this group is going to respond. Looks like they're not going to let her get away quite yet. I mean, that would just yeah, you don't want to do that with 15K to go. Her going up the road, that would not be good. So I predict they're going to work to pull her back, keep her in check. Heading into that corner, you see the riders slow down just a little bit following those RGT physics. And they're going to keep her dangling there.
Nice reaction, actually, from this field. I'm pretty impressed at their ability to chase Jackie Godby down. But look at the power difference, 4.9 for Godby. Everyone else averaging right around 4. Even Eleanor Wiseman dropping under to 3.5 there. So Godby's overall power is definitely higher for this period as she goes over 5 here. Strello into the red zone to try to respond to that one. But this is an interesting move for Godby. I don't know that we normally see an attack like this from Jackie Godby where she sort of picks a moment to go. So it'll be interesting to hear from Jackie at the end of this one whether she's just trying to mix up the strategy today. Here goes Wiseman trying to go across the gap. Frankie, Eleanor Wiseman is such an explosive rider, the MED Foundation rider. We've watched her come back from getting dropped out of the group. We've watched her go across some really impressive gaps. It just hasn't quite come together perfectly recently for Eleanor, but she's due for another win here pretty soon.
Yeah, she was second at the Giro de Grafton, and I thought that was a fantastic move for her to try to come across to Jackie Godby. And seeing Jackie Godby in this little gap that she has is bringing me back to when she attacked at the Dirty River, and she went away solo and just was gone. I mean, there was no signs of seeing her anymore, and she took minutes out of everybody else. And so this little kind of let's take our time bringing her back here or let her dangle, she's too dangerous. She's like a stick of dynamite. You can't light the fuse and just let her out there and expect her not to explode. She will go And so you got to shut it down pretty quickly. And I think this main group in the back, they need to get together and like Weissman just attack to try to go across. The others need to do the exact same thing, or Godby's going to ride away from you.
Gap is growing. She's up to 50 meters now. Biggest gap of the day that we've seen from Godby. Look at the focus, Todd, for Jackie Godby. She never takes her eye off the screen. Even when she doesn't have to worry about the other riders around her responding, she knows that the turns are still really important. And so Godby keeps an eagle eye on the gameplay screen because she wants to make sure that she times the power perfectly both into and out of the turns on RGT.
Yeah, another example of these riders being really savvy and working hard. So she is probably reviewing in her mind the scenarios that this is the last day. It's been, she's taken a group basically to 200 meters to go on the previous 4 days. And she's probably saying to herself, you know what? Some of these ladies may throw in and they may go hard. And so if I can get away, I'm going to try and do it, and we're going to watch and see if she can actually pull this off. I think, yep, there we go. We're starting to close that back up. Steph Sidlick back in contention, so reset and ready to continue.
Well, I'm sure Jackie Godby is feeling pretty good after that attack because she got away really quickly. Now Tracy trying to counter that. Great move here by Christy Tracy.
Yeah, and Godby reacting immediately to it. But it was Weissman and Tracy that went to the front to be able to bring back Jackie Godby. Smart move. I mean, you had to do it, you want to do it relatively quicker than slower. And they did a fantastic job bringing it back. And then Christy Tracy trying to counterattack. I think just kind of testing, seeing if anybody's tired and who's going to be able to chase them down. But Godby didn't want her to be able to get away. So our group of seven still remains close together.
Now Weissman moving up the outside. I think Tracy and Godby are probably the only two with the ammo to attack out of this group, or at least with the confidence based on the past results here in the ERL. I would expect to see one of those two names making the attack. So looking at Christy Tracy here on the right-hand side of your screen. Down in her time trial bars, Frankie, we see this with Christy Tracy a lot. She really likes to be down in what would normally be an aero position on the time trial bike, but here I think it's probably just about comfort for her.
Yeah, it's like the harder she goes, then she goes into this time trial position. And we talked about her qualities of being, an ultra endurance athlete, and 12-hour time trials, 24-hour time trials, current national record holder in those, looking to go back and repeat to defend her title in a 24-hour national time trial. Also go to the World Championships at Borrego Springs. So she's, ultra endurance, and this is her go-to and comfort position. And I think a lot of this, the virtual racing is important to her, and she likes doing it, and she's improving on maybe some of the weaknesses she has. But ultimately, this is a training tool for her goals for later on, and that means being in that position. She wants to teach herself how to go hard in that position, how to recover in that position. I don't want to say sprint in that position, but you get my idea. The more time she can spend in that position, it acclimatizes her to be ready for when she gets outside and has to be able to do her real-life events.
So the real balance right now for this group is with Godby obviously showing that she's willing to go off the front. You would want to tuck in behind, take advantage of the draft, especially if you worked hard to close that gap. But you have to be careful, as we've been saying throughout, the dynamics in the corners could mean that you have this small gap. If there happens to be an attack right there, the small gap turns into a large gap, and then you got a whole nother can of worms to deal with. So just tucking behind Godby is a delicate balance. You obviously could save some energy, let her burn some matches. She's just pushing 4 watts per kilogram kind of on a regular basis and not going into the red too much. So if you can stay tucked back there, keep an eye on her, that might be one way to start closing up. 8 laps to go, getting down to the pointy end of this race.
Looks like Larson has dropped back to the Rogers and Manahan group. So this is going to be... Yeah, so you see Manahan is a couple laps down on Larson, and then I think Noble is a lap up on them as well, up the road a little bit. You see Manahan at 5.57 kilometers back from the current rider that we're watching, which is Anna Rogers. So that means that Little and Monahan on the same lap. And then I think Larson 1 lap above them, 1 lap behind Noble and Rogers.
2 MED Foundation riders along with the 2 Velocity Vixen riders. And then up in our front group, we have a Velocity Vixen rider that has managed to be able to stay up here. Doing a great job is Darlene Crone. Streelau has also been very active in being able to stay up here, but, Sidlick and Weissman and Godby, these are the regulars that we have seen here. So Crone, relatively new coming into the foray here. So I got to say, she's going to, she should be very pleased with her ride so far, and it'd be great if she can finish this off with a podium spot a little bit later on.
So, Frankie, what are you telling your riders? If we know that Godby can go to 13 watts per kilogram in the last 200 meters, what are you telling your riders? What's your solution to the Godby dilemma?
Honestly, I don't have a solution because she's so strong. When you're that strong, you can make mistakes. You can go off the back and you can just correct everything too easily. And riding, if you're riding at 4 watts per kilogram, that's hard. It's not easy to ride at 4 watts per kilogram. And she can do that. She can sit on the front at 4 watts per kilogram, and everybody else is like, they're not pinned, but it's uncomfortable and they're sitting on. So you can't attack. It's like a super long lead out. You can't attack because she's riding at 4 watts per kilogram, which is hard and fast. And if you wait for the sprint, she can do 13 watts per kilogram. So there's really nothing you can do. I would follow the wheel and just try to be able to, take a chance that she might, drop her chain and go for the rest of the podium spots.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but a sprint might be your best chance to beat Jackie Godby. Your best case scenario would probably be that you can get her in a chaotic sprint at some point at the finish, because you're just not going to beat her on power, right, Todd? You're not going to beat her on numbers alone. You're not going to beat her out of a breakaway. Certainly not going to try and beat her head-to-head in a long-range attack. So I think the best thing to do is just hope that maybe you can surprise her in a sprint. I guess that would be my strategy.
Yeah, it's a little different than an IRL sprint in that the zebras keep an eye on sprinters and the lines that they hold. Nonetheless, there is allowed and acceptable, finger quotes, blocking, especially if you have teammates, or you simply take the best line, especially if the final corner is close to the line as it is in Janesville. That's not going to be an issue here in the virtual world. Once you start going, it's all about power. The computer and its graphic engine will figure out where your avatar is, and that's completely not related to your travel from your current position across the line. So, yeah, surprise is really the best element. And like you're saying, if you stay on her wheel and can try and snap when she goes, and that's got to be quick, because once she goes, she's gone.
Yeah, I guess if someone's stronger than you, they're stronger than you. And it's not like, if it was in real life, I would try to hip sling her, throw her backwards. Then she'd probably knock me over.
There are some ways, I guess, in real-life racing where you can, try and deal like a rider like this. Some fully legal ways, like the Saturn setup. I guess you can sort of set a false tempo, maybe let a little gap open up, try and gap her off the group. There's some tactics some bike handling tactics that you can use in the group to try to maybe move a rider a little further towards the back. But none of that in virtual racing, so we're going to have to wait until we all get our vaccines to get back to gapping riders off in the field on purpose.
8K to go. Godby first into that corner, as she has been rather consistently. The riders trying to hold position. Tracy laying down some watts, just trying to get in the lead. Uh-oh. Hang on. There we go. Godby once again jumping. Godby wants to be in the front. She wants to be in that lead position. And I'm thinking with 8K to go, let her just hang out behind her, conserve as much as possible, and then see how it plays out.
Yeah, see how she accelerates here? Just as soon as she got to the back, she wants to get right back up there. I think part of this is that she's being overly cautious. She would rather err on the side of using an extra, let's say, 0.1 watts per kilogram rather than risk getting dropped off the back, because if you lose that, you're going to be burning a whole lot more than a tenth of a watt per kilogram or whatever she loses by riding on the front here. So maybe it's just an insurance policy, wanting to just make sure that she doesn't get dropped, because that would be the worst case scenario. And it wouldn't be because she doesn't have the legs. Again, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Maybe she just has a lapse of attention for a minute, the computer crashes, whatever the issue is. So just trying to stay safe at the front. Not sure. If she wins today and we chat with her, we'll ask. I'll make a note of that, see if we can figure out why Jackie Godby likes riding on the front so much. She might not even be aware that she's doing it, Frankie. I mean, a lot of times you just get in your zone, you just keep riding your tempo and your power, and the other riders sort of put Jackie Godby on the front. So maybe it's not Godby getting to the front, it's the other riders putting Godby on the front.
That's a valid point. She's just like, I'm riding my tempo, and she might say, yeah, I just find myself on the front. But she definitely seems to find herself on the front as though she's, on purpose. And so it would be an interesting question to see how she would do with that. Stephanie Sidlick doing a fantastic race right now. She's doing well. She's out of Pittsburgh also, and she's a good climber. I mean, she's ridden in real life. She's ridden Redlands, Joe Martin, Gila. She's a chemistry professor for Carnegie Mellon, and kind of divides her time up, obviously, with training and then her work. And so, all of these riders here really have had to figure out a balance between the work life and training. And they've all said virtual racing has actually made it easier. It's easier for them to be able to do the virtual racing than real life racing. And Todd, obviously, I think part of it is because of, they don't have to travel.
Is what appears to be making a point of not being on the front. So let's see if that plays into a strategic approach as we get down to the end of our race with just over 5 kilometers to go.
And Weissman has been, a second and a third in our Tour of America's Dairyland so far. So she has a good sprint. I mean, that's something you have to be able to take into consideration. And she's very experienced. In 2019, Eleanor Weissman did over 53 races. And so that's a ton of races in 2019. So very experienced racer and getting good results. And so that's a good observation, Todd, that, sitting in, maybe trying to conserve a little bit more than usual so that she can have a little bit more snap at the end.
Yeah, and as we've been saying, it is the final day. So if you're going to snap, you might as well snap all the way. And so, if there was any sense of a 4-day series and a little bit of conservation, that's all out the window. Approximately midnight, where Eleanor is riding right now. So, again, her normal training schedule may be a little goofed up just a little bit. We're getting close. We're inside 5K to go. Race director Bill Koch standing by to be ringing the bell for 1 to go. For the final time here at 4 days of virtual racing, Tour of America's Dairyland, and 2 days prior to that with the all-important amateur categories. Each one of these days, each one of these courses that we do across the 11 days of the Tour of America's Dairyland is now populated by amateur racing. We have junior racing. We have hand cycle racing, para-cycle racing on some of our venues. We try and maximize our venues. As we were talking about earlier, it used to be Shorewood. We'd kick it off with the pro women's, pro men's. Then Shorewood stepped up and said, yeah, we want a full day of racing. So each one of the 11 days of racing, no matter what category you're in, we do our best to have something for you. We'd love to have you swing by our website. We've got a decision point coming up. Everything is looking good, though. Each day it looks a little bit better, so we are certainly planning on racing this June.
Todd, for the other categories, they have leaders jersey, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We have fantastic sponsors that step up for our 4-5s, our Category 3. We have a sprint competition that we've launched recently that has a fantastic jersey. Peter Mullins saw the jersey and said, that's it. I'm going after that jersey. That's how cool the jersey was from the Lowlands group. And so, yes, we have competitions in just about every one of the categories so you can experience chasing down that Omnium jersey at Tour of America's Dairyland.
And that's what's great about Tour of America's Dairyland. I mean, obviously the pros, they get some attention, but the other categories get just as much attention. I mean, a full-on award ceremony. You get the leader's jersey. You have a great competition, and so it's part of the organization because a lot of the riders and people that are working with Tour of America's Dairyland, they're past cyclists. They know what it's like to be up and coming. They know what it's like to be new to the sport. They know what it's like to be super good at the sport, like Tom Schuler was. And he wants to be able to reward all the people that come to the race. And that, I think, is a great job, the way they do that for all the categories, to pretty much treat them evenly.
Yeah, it's a big part of Tour of America's Dairyland for sure, because you can't forget it's about racing all day and about bringing everyone out to race. Bill, Tour of America's Dairyland has some of my favorite leaders jerseys anywhere, not just in the country, but in the world. The cow print leaders jerseys that we give out to all the categories. I know a lot of riders really appreciate that. We do our best to make sure we have sizing for everyone. A lot of riders will want some souvenir jerseys as well, but that's one of the cool parts of Dairyland. I just love the cow print jerseys.
Yeah, that was a feature from day one with our sponsorship by the Milk Marketing Board. Cow print just made sense. It was just a really easy decision to make. We've been really lucky to have jersey sponsors for virtually all of our different categories all of these years. So we've stuck with cow print. It sort of brought us to the dance, right? So that's what we're sticking with. And I got to say, though, the Lowlands Lion Preem jersey that debuted last year, pretty hard to beat. It's really special, and I think a lot of riders, especially returning riders, saw something new and different. They said, I got to get that on my back. I've got to figure out a way to win one of those sprints. So that added a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, up in the pro races, we also have multiple jerseys in there, not just for the overall leader, but we'll do one for the sprint competition. And then also our top category 2. This is another thing that I think is really cool at Tour of America's Dairyland, because we race Pro 1-2 in the fields. We have a jersey that recognizes the top category 2 rider in the field, and that's always exciting to watch.
Yeah, that's the Oarsman green jersey, Oarsman Capital. Financial advisors, actually a really good friend of mine, but green jersey for money. And for those aspiring Cat 2 riders that are on their way up to 1 or pro levels, it's a great jersey to earn and to keep on your back for all 11 days.
It's always fun to watch those Cat 2s out there. Bill, get ready to ring that bell, because I think our start-finish line is just up and around this final turn. We should start seeing the red Tour of America's Dairyland arch here pretty soon as we get ready to send the riders out for their last lap of racing around the Otto Wentz Cafe Hollander Downer Classic course. They're into turn 3.5 there around the final turn. So, riders ready. This is normally, Todd, where we start getting the crowd hyped up. We start asking them to bang the boards, which is a term that hasn't come out of my mouth for now a year plus, I'm sad to say, but I know we're going to be getting back to it here really soon, so I wish I had some
I got 3 bells.
Virtual boards to bang here, but at least we'll have the bells to get things ready. So riders coming up to the line now. Let's get them going as we send them off for the final lap. Bill, over to you.
One to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, at this point, if there is a spot on the boards that's open, it is immediately sucked up. Everybody, they're away from the tables at Cafe Hollander. They're coming out of the Pizza Man. They're lined up along the top of the parking garage looking down at the start-finish line, because we send them around the corner off onto turn 1. You and I are staring back through to see what the action is on the course. We're using Bellevue as our way to see the backside of the course from the start-finish stage. And the place is just electric, waiting for the riders to come to the line.
You guys have both announced with me in person. Frankie, at this point, I'm about as red as a beet. I'm a little lightheaded. I'm feeling like I might pass out, and people are starting to get concerned about me.
You are, Brad. You're a
absolutely
poster.
true.
Brad, you're a poster child for varicose veins, you know, because everything is bulging from your neck and your head because you are screaming, charging everybody up, and, you know, nobody does it better.
What can
At
I
lap
say?
3, I go and make sure I know where the medics are, and then we proceed.
All right, well, I'll try and stay grounded for this one, although I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty good jump to the line here as we go inside 500 meters here. Still nobody has jumped. They still have a few turns to go. Remember that long drag from the line after they get out of the final turn, so they're coming into the penultimate turn now. And then once they make that final turn, it is a rocket to the line. So let's see who goes. Now they start to open it up. Look at Crone going into the red already. Tracy is going to get there, but Godby up to the front early here at 220 meters out from the line. Has Jackie Godby gone too early? This is a great opportunity for some of the other power riders to try to come over the top of her. Sidlick is there. Here comes Crone trying to surge as well. Tracy fading a little bit as Jackie Godby holds on for another win to cap off a perfect week at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Godby goes 4 for 4. What a ride for Jackie Godby.
Second through sixth, as close as you could possibly be. But Godby, with that separation, going up the road and logging another one.
How about Crone up for second, Frankie? A new name up on the podium.
Yeah, for Velocity Vixen, that's a fantastic ride by her. But Godby, 16 wins out of the 22 races. I mean, it's unbelievable. She went from a long ways out. Crone, I thought, was going to fade, but I don't know. She had the legs. It seems like, 4 days of racing, the fatigue really hasn't set in for her. So that was a fantastic result for her. Third place with Christy Tracy, and then fifth place with Sidlick. So, that overall rankings of the ERL, it's definitely going to shift from, second, third, fourth, and fifth. But Godby really is wearing the crown, and she deserves to wear the crown because she has been fun to watch, but also just incredible athlete that she's been doing with the virtual racing, and it'll be fantastic to see once she gets outside.
Strello in for sixth, and now we're watching the battle for seventh and eighth place here with Rogers up the road, and then Noble sitting in the group in eighth, and then we'll see behind her Larson, who is sitting comfortably in ninth place, and then Monahan and Little will duke it out for the last of the top 10 spots available here at the Virtual Tour of America's Dairyland. We've seen those two AMD Foundation riders sticking together the entire race. Way to go to Monahan and Little. Big shout out to those two hanging in today. A nice job riding together. It's not always easy, especially on RGT. So we see you, and nice job. Very impressive riding today.
Yeah, Monahan with the AMD Foundation. So there's two riders, AMD Foundation, two riders from Velocity Vixen. And so, they're all riding together and doing a good job of trying to be able to get towards the end. Rogers did a fantastic job in the first part of the race. I mean, she really gave everything to stay in that first group as long as possible. And again, I've talked about, sometimes just a little bit of a glitch or just a lack of concentration for a moment, and you find yourself in the wrong spot. And I think that's a little bit of what happened with Rogers. But got to be happy with this final race and being able to finish up strong.
All right, so Noble on the way in as we watch these riders finishing up. Let's go grab a word with Jackie Godby. Jackie, congratulations. Another one out there. You look tired. It's got to feel good to finally get these races behind you. It has been a long weekend here at the Virtual Tour of America's Dairyland.
It has. It's been a long weekend. It's been a long series, but honestly, I've had fun ever since the beginning of November. So fantastic race series. Thank you so much for putting this on.
Hey, we have, I feel like I know your riding inside out, intimately know your riding style at this point. But one thing we were talking about today, trying to figure out, you spend a lot of time on the front, Is that because you want to be there, or is that the other riders putting you there? I mean, how do you end up on the front so much?
So it's a little bit of both, particularly on these flatter courses where sheer watts outweighs watts per kilo. As a heavier rider, I can just put out watts to stay at the front, stay really at the same effort level as the other riders. So, I just naturally sort of drift to the front once everybody agrees on the pace. And because today there wasn't a lot of up and down, a lot of gradient changes, there wasn't a lot of mix-up, save for the turns. So, I think it's just a body habitus. I'm very comfortable at the front. At this point in the series, I trust the other riders, and I know that I can hang there. It's a good position. I have confidence in my abilities. I have confidence in the pack, and it's a good position. It's not scary to be there.
You certainly ride it well on the front and look comfortable while you're up there. The sprint to the line today, are you getting better at sprinting? Do you feel like you're starting to make marginal gains in your sprinting ability, or are you still considering yourself a long-range attacker?
I really like to think that I'm making gains in my sprint ability. Over this weekend, I've actually set 2 power bests for the year already. So I think, practice makes you better. And that's one thing I've really focused on, coming into this race series, knowing that it was going to be 4 crits, knowing that it was going to be 4 races where it would likely come down to that line. So I like to think the preparation paid off.
Well, just when I don't think your max power can get any higher, you seem to keep setting higher and higher numbers. I know you got a lot coming up in life. What's your next big competitive goal, your next big goal on the bike? What's circled on the calendar for you from an athletic perspective next?
Well, coming up on Saturday, we've got the Woodlands Women's Ride on RGT. So that's going to be sort of my celebration to myself for matching, for finding out where I'm going, for getting this week over, finishing the series. Like I said, competition riding is its own reward, so I'm happy to celebrate with more celebration.
Right on, the Woodstock Women's GP coming up on, I think, the 20th here. I'll be there. So looking forward to seeing you there, Jackie, and congratulations on not only a win today, but you can now celebrate your overall ERL victory. You are the first Echelon Racing League overall winner. Congratulations, and congratulations to your team, your coach. Give John a big thank you for me as well. I know he has been...
He'll come up here and accept it for himself. So thank you so much for putting this on. It's really been great.
Thanks for putting on a show for us. Jackie Godby, your Echelon Racing League overall winner. Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you.
What a great attitude. I love having Jackie Godby winning the races here. You really couldn't ask for a better ambassador for virtual racing and a better ambassador for women's racing than Jackie Godby. She has been incredibly gracious with her time here in the ERL and with helping more riders get into the sport, get onto the trainer, and get into racing here in RGT and some of the other platforms. So, Frankie, taking a look at the riders in so far, with Godby taking the win just ahead of Darlene Crone with her best result of the season. Bravo for Velocity Vixen as they get one up into second place, and then Christy Tracy taking third for Team Infinite today. The Tracy Wiseman battle continued on the final day today, Frankie.
Yeah, not much of a difference in that, and so that come down to some value points in the overall for the ERL, but Darlene Crone, a fantastic win. Look at the Velocity Vixen. They are stacking up the points, so they are definitely confidently going to be able to take home that team prize, which I'm sure Velocity Vixen team is going to be very, very pleased about.
Then you look a little further down with Sidlick in 5th, Strello in 6th. Anna Rogers takes 7th place on the day with Cheyenne Noble in 8th, and then Holly Larson in 9th with our final top 10 riders on the way in, which we think will be one of those riders from the Amy D Foundation team. Well, as we wrap up the virtual Cafe Hollander Downer Classic, the Tour of America's Dairyland, and the ERL, Frankie, I want to start with you. Looking back, as Jackie Godby said, since we started racing at the beginning of November, it seems like it was just a few weeks ago that we were moving into virtual racing here, and now we're kind of on the other end of that transition, looking to move back into real life racing. But this has been a really fun winter. I hate to use the word fun in 2021, but there was some brief shining lights here in the Echelon Racing League.
I thought it was a fantastic way to be able to bring kind of that racing spirit, that competitive instinct back to what we missed so much. And so I enjoyed that. You know, it started back in November. And in the beginning, it was very different, hard to get used to. But you started finding out these stories from the riders, and their fitness started improving. I grew all of this over the winter time, you know. And so now that the sun's coming out, it's time for me to shave, get outside, and start riding and having fun, just like everybody, just like all of they are going to do. You know, we're excited to get back to real racing, but the virtual racing was fantastic.
And Todd, the best part of the ERL, we're racing on real-life courses with real-life races. So I know there's a lot of excitement for all the races that have been on the ERL calendar, and I'm feeling the hype for Toad now. I hope you feel it too.
Well, it's not just a feeling, Brad. It's real, because the preparation for the ERL has lit the fire for even a higher level of preparation for the IRL. And Bill Koch and I were talking. It's really helped him put into place, okay, how do we best serve ERL? And we're finding parallels to how we're prepping and improving the IRL experience for the Tour of America's Dairyland coming up.
Everyone wins. Guys, I will see you in person this summer. I cannot wait to give you guys some high fives in person, and we can stop staring at each other on a screen here. So that's going to do it for us today. On behalf of everyone here at the Echelon Racing League, Frank Cundiff and Eric Hill, our production team behind the scenes, Damon Bates and ZMS Livestream on the cameras, Fiber Media and Mark Zalewski, our director behind the scenes. A big thank you to all of our promoters, all of our races, all of our riders for being here this season. So for Frankie Andreu and Todd Bastide, my name is Brad Soner. Guys, let's get out and go ride our bikes in real life. Let's get training for our virtual team. That does it for the 2021 Echelon Racing League. We'll see you next time.